Councilmember Dennis Smith.
Present.
Do you have anybody say that?
Well,
Is Troy LeBlanc here to pay the invocation? Hey, you're the volunteer, say the invocation. Okay, stand up, I'll say the invocation. Father God, thank you so much for this beautiful town and allowing us to live here and enjoy this peace and quiet and the beauty of this place, Father. Thank you, God, for the life-giving rain you've given us today. God, please bring us together as a community. Give us a vision that we all can share. God, let us just talk to each other as friends and neighbors and not hostile opponents. God, I don't think anybody feels that in their heart. Let's clean that out of the way with dialogue. And let's just get some good stuff done tonight. In Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Honor. Okay. Announcements. Thank God for the rain. The burn ban is off. And it's still stage 4 water restrictions, but hopefully this rain will help things. Also, it was asked her if it was okay if I announced this. It was a joyous occasion. Councilmember Swinson got married.
It will be.
Oh, okay. But would you like to say?
Yeah, well, so I decided to announce that because I got married, I'm resigning from council. I'm moving in with my husband, and he lives outside of the city limits. So I'll still be around, but I'm not eligible to remain on council. With that being said, my resignation creates vacancy, and council can choose to fill the vacancy or not. So for state law, I'm eligible to continue on council until that vacancy is filled. So I'll be here continuing the duties until council says otherwise.
Thank you, Laura. Because I've got 30, 50, 100 emails today from library folks, I'm going to move that up to the first thing on the new business today because I know a number of people came for that. Y'all can get home. Councilmember McClung, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I think really we just want to start a discussion. This is not adversarial. We're not wanting to take anything from anybody. I just want everybody to understand that the reason I got interested in this is there's some certain overlay districts with the 3 taxing entities we have, the city, the library, and emergency services, such that if Blanco was to ever expand, we'd get 0 sales tax, regardless of where the city limits may grow. And so I think currently, in fact, one of the I got an email that start with, I think you put up lay the groundwork on this. I think this can be a friendly conversation. That's certainly everybody's hope. But in a communication from the library today, it said, even to this day, the library district does not receive sales tax revenue to support services for the residents that live inside the old city limits. Old city limits being 2002. I would propose the city should get into negotiations about sharing that sales tax with the library, and possibly from the old city limits and balancing that out as Blanco grows. But the current situation is from our current city limits, even if we were to expand over the next 10 years to 290 with voluntary annexation, there's development, et cetera, there would be 0 sales tax available to the city for any growth whatsoever. And I think it's probably worthy to have a conversation with the 3 taxing entities at a table and say, what's fair for everyone? And that's really the purpose of this discussion, as well as trying to find out from our current tax, are we really collecting? I've got some reports we'll get into later, but there's many businesses in the city limits now, where it's unclear today if we're really collecting sales tax in the road, or is that just sitting in some account at the comptroller's office? So this is, in combination with just auditing our sales tax revenues, make sure we're really watching that. And that's really, I hope this is a friendly conversation. It's just the start of a conversation.
As far as I know, there's no action item or anything planned or.
The only action item, and one reason I asked to have on the agenda here, is that if we choose to poll the citizens, or if we do get a negotiated agreement with the ESD and the emergency service district and the library district about possible changes, we were able to have that as a referendum in early May, but that deadline is this Friday. So at least we want to start the conversation, and if we had some negotiations prior to printing the ballot, it may be on a ballot in May, if we come to some fair agreement between the three taxes. So that's the only reason for the urgency. If we want to make a change, we can do that. Very good.
We have. Okay. Yeah, okay, so it's time for the public hearing. Okay, because this got overflowed, is there anybody here to talk about the approval of special use permit for the restaurant? So we will kick into this, and I can't read all this handwriting. Ann Hall. They're Ann Hall. Okay, Ann.
Hi there.
How are you doing?
Thanks for having me so much. My name's Ann Hall. For those of you who don't know me, I'm president of the Emergency Services District. I've been president of the Emergency Services District since 2012, 2013. Prior to that, I was president of the Emergency Services District at Lake Travis, which now includes Lake Lake. So I don't brag, but I want you to know I have some credibility. You are looking at a system of overlapping ESDs and their sales tax. And this is an ongoing problem for ESDs everywhere, that cities come in and annex them. And ESDs are capped at 10 cents per $100 valuation. We cannot raise our taxes. The most we can charge is 10 cents per $100 valuation. So that caps us off at that amount. I have some handouts that I will give to you. One is just a flow sheet of what has been made by the city, by the library, and by the ESD over the years. For example, B24, we're all taxing at different rates. Cities at 1.5%, libraries at 0.5%, I'm at 1%. So we're taxing different entities. So I showed this to somebody and they said, well, how can these numbers be right? They're all different. I'm like, because they are all different. This is just a reporting of a number. So, for example, last year, the city got $1,134,342.06 in sales tax. The ESD got $373,119.44, and the library got $331,933.96. And you say, how can that be? They only charge half as much as you, because the library annexed property prior to the ESD, so therefore they have Stripes, they have Sonic, they have some big income producers, so they make more than we make. And so that's just a very simple little spreadsheet that shows how the money looks. If you'll pass that up, I think there's one for each council member to have. I'm a teacher, so I usually do things like this. I guess this is your attorney now. We go to help me. Attorneys are very expensive. My husband was one. I know he's charging you by the hour. I want to make sure that you understand your council should be talking to my commission and their board of directors. We should not be having our employees talking to your employees and then talking to our employees. This is leadership to leadership, and that's the way it ought to be done. You have, and I assume, a membership in Texas Municipal League, correct? Here's a handout from your legal expert, Bill Langley, who asked the question, what's an emergency services district? This came out years ago. It is still accurate because I checked. It talks about annexation, how the money is reallocated, and I will give that to your attorney. This is a copy for your board. And I would love to meet with any of you anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Matt Hurton, you're up.
I won't be quiet, man. I want to thank y'all for letting me speak tonight. My name is Matt Burton. I'm a citizen of the city of Blanco and also a commissioner from the SD too. Tonight I'm just asking about the item number 7 on your agenda. It states that I'll consider to discuss take action for election, referendum, or similar action to reallocate sales tax in the present or future combined areas overlapping the limits of the city of Blanco, Blanco County South Library District, and the Blanco County Emergency Services District number 2. I do understand the city is on a tight budget, but in that budget, youth council was in the process of seeking taxpayer approval for a very large bond for infrastructure, which we all know we need very desperately. You're looking to review the city's comprehensive master plan, looking to revamping the Unified Development Code, update the city zoning structure, creation of a Blanco Heritage Foundation, and least of all, we're thinking about a new city hall and police station, post office. I know the city has struggled also to have a police department for its citizens. And I believe tonight, though, what you're asking on article number 7, it's going to diminish the performance of Blanco ESD, which already serves the citizens of Blanco. You're calling for another issue on an already overcrowded budget or blank ballot. My question tonight, and since it's on the agenda, and I'm sure the council can answer the question tonight, what is this item number 7, sales tax referendum dedicated for? And in the future discussion between the 3 entities, I suggest that you have the city administrator attend with it because he's doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nancy Clark.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Nancy Klein, and I am the president of the Blanco County South Library District Board of Trustees. The board consists of 5 elected trustees, and we are responsible for the operations of the Blanco Library. I'm here tonight to speak against agenda item 7, which calls for consideration of an election, referendum, or similar action to reallocate sales and use tax in areas of our library district which overlap with the city limits of Blanco. This reallocation means that the city wants to take the revenue, 1/2 of the sales and use tax that the library receives from businesses in areas of precincts 1 and 4 that the city has annexed since the formation of the library district in 2002. The city wants to keep this revenue instead of allowing it to go to the library as required by current tax code. In addition, this agenda item addresses the future, so that if the city is successful in this reallocation, the percentage of the sales and use tax from any businesses in territory annexed in the future would go to the city, not the library. During 2024, the 19 major businesses in the annexed or overlapping area of the city provided approximately $122,500 in sales and use tax revenue for the library. Our total budget for 2024-2025 is approximately $399,000. So you can see that the revenue from the overlapping area is a major percentage of our operating budget. If the library lost this revenue, we could continue operating the library for a while using our reserves, but it would not be long until we had to cut back on services, hours, programs, and staff. It would be very difficult to replace $122,000 of our budget each year by fundraising and grant writing. Our understanding of the law is that when a city annexes territory that is within a library district, the comptroller has a provision for the district to continue to obtain the sales and use tax revenue that they were receiving prior to the city annexation. We would request that this agenda item be tabled until we can investigate this further and obtain legal advice. Thank you for the opportunity to express our concerns.
Thank you so much. Ray Ashland.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Laura, thank you for your service. Best of luck. I'm here to, my wife and I own the Blanco Pharmacy, the oldest pharmacy in the state, and I'm the vice president on the courthouse board. So I have a lot of opportunity to interact with some of your management folks here at the city. And I just want to call out and thank the great job that Chief Thornhill has done in reestablishing the police department, hiring very professional people, and just the great work that you're doing. I appreciate that. I also want to thank Mr. Esteby. Owning a business a few doors down, dealing with parking, water, all sorts of issues leads to a lot of interaction with Mr. Esteby. Not all the time. We don't agree all the time. But what I appreciate about him is he's very professional. He is sincere. He's honest, and he's always, even if we disagree, he's always trying to figure out a way to work out a solution that's good for the city and it's good for the business owners, and does it in a very professional way, which is tough. He has a job that faces inward with his staff and you all as leaders of the city. And then he faces outward with us as business owners. And I have very much appreciated his professionalism and the work that he's doing. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Mr. Dan Murrah.
Bring any notes, it's gonna be worth it. Respectful disagree with Mr. I've been here almost 3 years. Spent a lot of money, a lot of budgets. You gotta be careful with our budgets. But I'm not involved. I'm not sure. Maybe the city needs a city manager. I don't know. But I know this man was hired without any competition. And I would like to at least the council to consider having some competition coming here. Can we get a person for a lot less money, maybe more experience? We don't know because we never, I don't think anybody knows if we never tried. I would like to encourage you to try.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Wayne Gosnell.
Thank you, Council. My name is Wayne Goffnell. I live inside the city limits of Blanco, and I'm here for you today as president of the Blanco County Defense Council. Item number 9 in tonight's agenda is a proposal to be part of the city's unexpended contingency fund to pay for part-time code enforcement officers. The Blanco County Friends of the Night Sky fully supports this initiative, but we note that the proposal makes no specific mention of the city's outdoor lighting ordinance. We worked for more than 5 years to get Blanco designated as an international dark sky community, which we got in 2022. And there's only 55 of these communities worldwide. It took us more than 2 years to write Blanco's outdoor lighting ordinance and get it approved by Dark Sky International. It was passed by the council in 2018 and amended in 2023. Unfortunately, according to our measurements, the night sky above Blanco is getting lighter, not darker, as is our goal. And much of this is because we have several businesses in the city with terrible outdoor lighting, some of which continues to add new lights since this has all come up. And you can spot them tonight as you drive off. Just look around. It's not rocket science. Last March, after years of failed efforts to get these businesses to correct their outdoor lighting, I filed 11 official ordinance violation complaints with the city of Blanco against these businesses, most of which are owned by people who do not even live in the city and could care less about our night sky. Today, only Texas Regional Bank has corrected its bad lighting, and to its credit, it did so voluntarily and not as a result of any code enforcement action. The other 10 remain non-compliant because there has been no enforcement. Unless we enforce the city's outdoor lighting ordinance, we can lose our international dark sky designation. The city told us that there was no money for a code enforcement officer and said, in essence, if you want the ordinance enforced, you're going to have to pay for it yourself. Okay, so we negotiated a memorandum of agreement, which council approved, with the city of Blanco, whereby the Blanco County Friends of the Night Sky would pay the city to hire a part-time outdoor lighting ordinance code enforcement officer. And one of our members donated $1,200 to help pay for it. But it now appears that the city has found money to pay for the code enforcement officer. This is a very good thing. So my request to the council is simple. And it simply is that if you're going to fund a part-time code enforcement officer, please include enforcement of the city's outdoor lighting ordinance in his or her duties. We will go ahead and transfer to the city the $1,200 that has been donated for this. We're going to train the code enforcement officer in the ordinance and how provisions can be enforced. It's not that difficult. You can do it. Thank you, council.
Wayne, thank you so much. Mr. Etheridge. Mike Etheridge.
So the reason I came here tonight, to speak to y'all, let you know that the weather gets good, and we're going to talk, take a look at that property. So,
Yes, sir.
so we need to get together somehow, so that's our full meeting, I'll probably have to get back in the factory.
Okay.
I don't know what the appropriate time is to get everybody together at the same time. You might have to do it, I don't know.
We'll figure it out. You have my phone number, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll figure it out. Let's wait till the ground dries up a little bit.
Okay.
Hopefully not soon, because I want it to keep raining.
Yeah, that'd be right up.
Thank you, sir. Wesley Murrah.
So I don't bring any paperwork either. I'm Wesley Murrah. I've lived in this town since 1985, so been around here for a little while. I'd like to bring up the fact about Warren. I agree with my dad that there shouldn't be we're not necessarily saying it shouldn't be a position. However, this gentleman was brought in by a corrupt government official that is now gone and states major issues for that. There's people that have run again, with intentions of going against him and have changed their claims, and currently running for other things as well. So this gentleman is not here to represent our city. Plain and simple, this is not here to prove it. He's tried to shut the public up for saying things on Facebook. For someone that I know, he's a snake in the grass. He needs to go. Not saying the position does, but he needs to go.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Retta Martin.
Hello, everybody, Mayor and council people. I'm here about this streetscape. I don't know if I'm gonna get to talk later on at the agenda item, so I put my name on here. I wanted to go over this list again. I've done it several times, but each time something else pops up, I think of. This actually started in 2006, like Keep Blanco Beautiful had a big fundraiser at Treetops Ranch and collected $5,000. We held on to that $5,000 until after the big Blanco action plan called for a streetscape, what we call a streetscape. That was in 2009. In October 2009, had a timeline. It's the only one that had a timeline on it. The resolution in 2009 is the only one that had a timeline on it. There are 3 resolutions. Okay, in 2013 and 14, Jim Raby's conceptual master plan was approved. That was done in 4 years. So we did meet for 4 years. Jim did it pro bono. We didn't raise the money. We could not raise the money, so Jim came in and did a pro bono. We went to work again to raise money, attempts to raise, and then we hired Mike Barnes and his associates to locate funds for us, and they tried real hard, and they were moving forward. Was held up for a year because he had to come back and he was working out of town, and he had to come back to the Blanco on his advances. Then the 4th Street plan by Nathan, the the mayor always wanted us to do the four-way stop sign because he felt like that was the most dangerous. So the four-ways, Nathan Cantrell, who was the public works superintendent, and John Klein, who was the architect for the bank, decided that they would go ahead and do the Fourth Street plan. And then, it was held up then because the textile said they would not accept the plan unless we had a drainage plan by an engineer. And so Dale Siltermeyer came in and we hired him to do the drainage plan. He moved away and was gone to Colorado for a long time, and it took a year or more for him to do that. So in 2017, the mayor put the project on hold, but it's inactive. That started over then. Okay? So we waited until 2020, and Judy Dorset and I, with Keith Blanco, the vehicle, decided we wanted to see this happen while we were alive. So I went to the council and asked them if we can shake this, which they did. We requested it, and the city council amended the resolution, paid me the first one, we donated the $5,000. That was used the second one we donated $6,646.80. 12/17/21, the city of Blanco donated $7,000 for the new committee. I know the guys are it. I'll finish. 2009 was a committee members resolution number 2009. It did not have a timeline on it. We had a new resolution by Tim when we came back in 2020. It did not have a timeline on it. 2021, the city council approved an amendment with 7 members, and so we had another resolution. It did not have a timeline on it. The Blanco Vehicle is a 501c3 corporation. We have a board, bylaws, and file a 990 income tax report annually. When we reactivated in 2020, we began over with RFQs for our architect and reorganizing. I have reviewed the progress that we have made and provided copies of our agreement with WCR Landmark Surveying, who will begin the survey on March 4th and 5th. Have the updated report as of today. In fact, Jen just texted me her updated report, but I won't take time to read it. But we have a signed agreement with our architect. Let's see, we have had only 20, 22, 23, and 24 of time to get where we are today. Bobby and Mike make it known that your job is to have 3 phases finished by 2025. 3 phases. Okay, but she has an update on my text.
Thank you so much. Greg Best.
Hey, everybody. And so thanks for letting me have a few minutes to speak. I'm not going to talk about any specific thing that's coming up in the council. I just want to talk about what I kind of see as the general, like an attitude that's going around that bothers me. I appreciate the time. So let's start off. According to a study of the Texas stereotypes, one of the stereotypes of Texans is they are the most genuine, friendly people you'll ever meet. I think that's important. And Texas Monthly lists friendless as 4 of the 75 things that we like about Texas. Being glad to see you, no matter who you are, is something our mom has taught us from birth. The wide smile, the firm handshake, the slap on the back. It's the way Texans meet the world. Social grease that makes living here pleasant and easy. And I kind of feel like we've stepped away from that a little bit as a community, and I think it's important that we start stepping back with that. So I'm going to use our old friend, the acrostic, and I'm going to use the word friend. I kind of want to go through a few points. The F stands for free ideas. So Linus Carl Pauling was an American chemist, biochemist, chemical engineer, author, and educator, and one of the 20 greatest scientists of all time. He had a thing called the Pauling principle. The best way to have a good idea is to have lots of ideas. We're not going to have lots of ideas if everybody that comes and has an idea and sets it up is going to be just attacked violently without their idea ever being paid any attention to. If we want the best ideas, then we need to let people voice them within our community. To go on, R is respectful. Confucius said, without feelings of respect, where is there to distinguish men from beasts? We need to respect each other in our community. It's an important thing. I'll give you a quick story about respecting someone.
Yeah, 1 minute left, just so you know. Yeah, pick it up.
Okay, all right, I'm going as fast as I can.
Well, I tend to.
Okay, so respecting, so I had a guy that when I first met him, I thought, man, this guy, he's not gonna work out. But I gave him a chance because I respected him being there, and he wound up working for me for 20 years. He was the best offer I've ever had. Eyes for independence, and we need to have the independent views be heard and be listened to and just be respected. We're going to E for even tempered, and for that, I'm going to go to the Bible. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. I think that's a very important thing that we need to start doing, is taking a step back and slowing down a little bit, getting our personal beef out of it. Let's listen to what's actually going on and try to make some decent decisions. Go to M for neighborly. A neighbor is helpful, friendly, and kind. We should strive to be more neighborly. The best neighbors make the best friends and the best allies. And D is decent. A healthy democracy requires a decent society. It requires that we are honorable, generous, tolerant, respectful. That was written by Charles Pickering, which was the former judge from the Fifth Circuit of Appeals. So my point of doing this isn't to point fingers at any person. I just feel like we all need to take a step back. Let's try to figure out the good for the community, and let's move forward and try to make that happen. Be friends. That's all I got to say.
Rodney Trail Kid.
Oh, I'm ready for that. Sorry.
I'll start to remember.
Thank you. Okay. Rodney couldn't be here tonight, but he asked me to talk. He is a City of Lincoln resident, and he wanted to talk about old business item 2. I implore you not to move forward in approving the MOA with Blanco Heritage. This conceptual foundation is not yet established or proven, but moreover does not yet have a name for directors. It would be foolhardy for the city to form an agreement with a stranger, yet this is what we are being asked to do. Further, paragraph 2 would seem to indicate that Blanco Heritage is empowered to reallocate health-donated funds initially earmarked for streetscape to other outside projects at its discretion. Streetscape is a community-based effort, and citizens of Blanco should remain at the reins. Please do not put outside special interest in the driver's seat. Lastly, we certainly open ourselves up to the conflict when a principal in this concept foundation is also to lead the acting city committee and maintain a seat on council. Thank you for your careful consideration, Rodney Griffin.
And you're doing the next one too?
Yes, sir. I'm
Mike
doing Mike
Smith.
Smith. Yes, sir.
I don't know your password. I started my own timer, so okay.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. So this is from Mike Smith on River Road. Thank you for the opportunity to address City Council at this meeting tonight. The public comment portion of your meeting is appreciated. I would also like to address 2 items tonight. One is on the agenda and the other is not. Item 1, each and every one of you were elected by the citizens of Blanco as their representative to help and guide and protect our city. I fully understand the commitment and time required to fulfill your civic duties, and I thank all of you for that. The actions of each council member and mayor, whether in an official capacity or not, is a reflection on the citizens of Blanco. This includes information you tender on social media, as well as your decisions while performing your official duties. I have previously stated to one of you, for every action there is a reaction. And here I am back again. Please be cognizant that you are our representative and always be respectful of the citizens you represent. And secondly, I would like to comment on executive session item 4, city administrator. As a citizen of Blanco, I think it's imperative that Blanco have a professional city administrator. As a former council member and having had the opportunity to work with numerous city administrators over the years, I can attest, in my opinion, that Warren Escovy has done a good job filling his duties as our city administrator. I believe Warren could do better if he was not burdened with the exceptional challenges tended by some of our elected officials. Council members, please don't get pulled into what may be personal vendetta and make the right decision for our town tonight. Thank you. Mike Smith.
Thank you. Albie Cook.
Good comments, man. I'm not gonna talk about weather and I'm not gonna talk about sewer. I'm gonna talk about Bobby Mack first. Louise is very active in the library, and Bobby has reached out to Louise and I about the reality of what's happening, that I don't think a lot of people say you're taking away money from the USB and the library. It's really not like it's the taxpayers' money. But when Bobby is what the city faces in my, because of our relationship with the water situation, it's almost criminal that y'all are extending utilities to developers, but your hands are tied on annexation, your hands are tied. The legislature's just made it very difficult for a city to provide services, and especially if you don't get the sales tax off of the commercial, when you consider all the. So I want to stress the county's got to be involved in this somehow, because when the district was first set up, the ESD district, the library board, it was assumed that precincts 1 and 4 would be south Blanco County, and 2 and 3 would be north. But because of rapid growth in the south part of the county, we live 5 miles north of Blanco. We're in precinct. Well, we're in the name of Peters. What's that, 2? So I'm thinking it's going to the left, to the ESD in Johnson City, because 1 and 4 goes to Blanco, 2 and 3, but most people don't realize how much run out of Blanco itself, all the way down to the Lutheran Church. That sales tax money is going to the Johnson City. So we've just got some nature and equities there. And like I just agree with Bobby that the city needs to really look at something to do with the funding the library inside the city. And the library district needs to realize that y'all need the tax business. That's why I'm just speaking more for the reasons, but Bobby has done an excellent job of communicating to us that we're trying to get blood out of the heart. It's just y'all don't have this money to support it.
Thanks. Crystal Sparta.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Crystal Spadek, resident of the city of Blanco and the library director of Blanco County Scientific District. I appreciate providing some clarification on some of the intentions on this, but I know that there has been continued discussion of how we misrepresent ourselves. So I will say for the, I don't know, coming in time, just for those in the audience that may not know, that the district was formed in 2002 through a vote from the community members that saw a need for a well-staffed, full-time library. We received 0.5% of sales tax collected in the southern part of Blanco County outside the city limits as it existed in 2002. Because many city residents, as well as county residents, utilize the library, the city council at the time proposed to allocate an agreed amount of funds each year to support the library instead of reallocating sales tax that was already collected in the city. This allocation, not donation, was a contracted exchange of funds for library services for those patrons living inside the old city limits. The library currently has over 2,600 active library patrons, 30% of whom live inside these old limits. Some people have said that we have misrepresented ourselves and say that we receive funds from inside the city limits. It's that differentiation, which is why we are now continually emphasizing old city limits. And we haven't annexed into any areas since our formation. While it is true that $15,000 from the city's allocation does not overall impact our budget now, the original reason for the service agreement remains the same, In recent years, the library has been able to adequately fund all of our project endeavors, cut costs, and save our future emergencies, as a responsible organization should. We have expanded our services, hired new staff to support community needs, and you may have seen that we were recently hiring, we have not completed the hiring process yet, a new programs and outreach coordinator to assist in connecting the library with the community and other community members, including members of the council, I'm sure will be part of the plan. Now, for tonight's topic on item number 7, the sales and use tax that is collected in the annexed areas of the city that overlaps our area should already benefit the city through additional taxes and property taxes. Attempting to reallocate the citizen approved and state legislative funds to these common areas from the library district to the city will greatly damage this library's funding by cutting it around a third. That third would likely mean reduction of staff at minimum and reduction of services, which will greatly impact our community. This would have ripple effects that are incalculable to be at this time. So it should not dismay anyone that seeing the words possible action would cause concern, and we would like to request that the council table this topic until further legalities can be explored.
Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Kenneth Welch.
Kenneth Welch, I'm a resident of the city, but I am a long-term Langonian. I've got several issues I'd like to touch on. First, the bond issue that's going to be coming up. I'm not sure I fully support the bond issue, but I'm a little confused, and I hope we get an answer as to why it's being presented as two different measures. To understand the dividing of why one would be for streets, one would be for water. Hopefully, I get an answer to that. But I support the bond issue. Secondly, the proposed referendum on the ESD as a library district. My understanding that when the law is written, the taxation is divided. Maybe it's been described very well tonight. And only way to work out of that is to do negotiations with the library and the ESD. So no call for a referendum. I don't think negotiation. I fully support the ESD. I don't want to cut a penny from them. That makes me more. Library likewise, fully support them. So I think tabling is the right answer there. Number 8 is the Wheels and Feet. Wheels and Feet has done a great job of putting together plans for sidewalks, trails through the city that comprehensive master plan. It can be perfectly coordinated with CMX efforts, coordinated with streetscape centers. They've done a great job, so we need to start talking about it to walking. Give them the support they're going to be at. Item number 10 is the AI policy. Talked about that in the workshop the other day. I embrace the need for an AI policy. I think it's a tool that the city can use. All I ask is that you prevent a draft of this policy for review by the board and the public. Don't use AI to write the policy unless you review the policy afterwards. The last one is old business number 2, restructuring with streets. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You just need to support these. They haven't done anything wrong. They've got a plan. They're going to have surveyors out finishing the survey in the next couple of weeks. You just need to move ahead. But we get also it's going to be enhancement, infrastructure issues, sidewalks belong to the city. They don't belong to a volunteer organization. They never should have been tasked funding the project themselves. That's your obligation to come up with it. I know there's not enough money to do everything. Sidewalk right outside of here. I think it's my law.
That was.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. All right. Moving on, we established right here for the public hearing. We're going to close that. Regular meeting. We are blessed and honored tonight to have great figure from American history, President George Washington. Please come.
Honorable Mayor, Council, and citizens, I'm not that old. I'm here today to accept the proclamation from the city of Blanco, the great city of Blanco, honoring George Washington's 293rd birthday. Just let that sink down. He was the right man at the right place at the right point in history, and we'd like to remind the citizens of the county and the cities that he's still there, he's still relevant. Last month, we witnessed a peaceful change in government for change in chief executive officer and for the legislative branch. A tradition started by George Washington, I might add. After 2 terms of being unanimously elected president of the new Republic of the United States, he decided not to run again. In 1797, gave it up, said, no, I'm done. Upon hearing that news, King George III, you know, I would have loved to see him get a text. That would have been fun. Was astounded and commented that if he gives up his power as president of the United States, he will be the greatest man in the world. I think a lot of us would agree with that. Again, he was the right man at the right place. His retirement, unfortunately, only lasted 2 years. He passed away at the end of December of '99. I didn't see that century. So on behalf of time, Mr. Mayor, you may want to not read the proclamation. Let's just tell everybody what it is, and then we can move forward. On behalf of the San Antonio chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, and my wife is reminding me now that she's DAR and DAR. So next year we'll have a modification to that proclamation. And I did not introduce myself at the beginning, I don't think. My name is Blair Rudy. We're just south of town in Cielo. Been here 7 years. This is, I believe, the 7th year I've been in the city doing this. Thank you so much for the tradition and the honor. And we are more than happy to have the city of Blanco declare February 22nd as George Washington Day on behalf of the honor of this great man. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You know, because people don't realize the sacrifice of our town. Because of them and their sons, we built the greatest nation in history. And I appreciate you keeping the memory alive.
That's our job. Good for you. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to call on citizens to recognize and honor the brilliance, courage, and vision of the father of our nation, the relevance of his life to the preservation of our democracy in today's complex world. That's the resolution.
We passed. We approved. Awesome. Thank you, Mayor and council and citizens. Turn it over to you. Good luck to everybody this evening. Okay, we can do it. We can do it. Just another quick word. George Washington, in his farewell address, one of the most publicly published books from his time in 1797 until 1852, with the publication of Uncle Tom's Cabin, was the second most published book in the United States, right behind the Bible, which is always maintained at one spot. He abhorred factions, called them factions. We don't call them political parties. If you have not had a chance to read his farewell address, and anybody here, go look it up. Remember that he said it verbally, so the sentences go on and on and on and on and on. But it is a wonderful read and reminds us of where we came from. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, there's another proclamation. This is Red Cross Month, founded 140 years ago by Clara Barton. There's a Red Cross Hill Country chapter that's active in our area. They volunteer and have give a lot to shine a beacon of hope to people in their darkest hours. This work uplifts our community, and we appreciate it. Therefore, I do hereby proclaim March 2025 as American Red Cross Month, and I encourage all citizens to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. All right. Thank you. Staff presentations. Moving on, City Hall. Mr. Eskin.
Thank you, Mayor.
So here.
As we noticed already, the election season, for people that turned in their application for January 15th, February 14th, which is on Friday, at 5 o'clock. So, we're excitedly waiting for anybody that wants to run, for either mayor or the 2 slots are open at, the city council. Then we talked a little bit about infrastructure last month. I want to go over just a couple of different items that are happening. As you know, TxDOT finally replaced those big flashing lights that were not real attractive. That's just normal stop signs. I do think though that at least at the time when people didn't know there was an actual stop sign there, it served a purpose. I'm very happy to say that now it's the normal forward stop. We'll also be working with TxDOT. Hopefully they'll fix drainage there, but that's another issue. Your water generators, or we're in the process of doing that for the public works facility, and then also there'll be other generators that will be purchased, part of our system. Hydrants, we have ordered 6 hydrants already, and they'll be coming. They'll look like this. They'll look at. So the new projects. We'll talk a little bit about it tonight. There's going to be a new fence of the water plant. We'll talk about what type it is, and the council will make a decision on that. We're replacing the pumps and the motors of the water plant. It is operational, but we do need to get those done so that the water can go to the standpipe. And then you'll hear more tonight about the work on the bond. So, what we want to talk about, it's very exciting, is I know we've been talking about this for months and months and months. Comp plan grant, we finally got it. So it's very, very exciting news, at least here at staff and council. They heard about it a couple of days ago. The full up $300,000. This is from the GLO, General Land Office. And it is a grant that will look at comp plan, and then anything that's left over, we'll talk to council about different things within that. However, the comp plan, we'll look at the codes, whether the UDC portion that need to be rewritten. We'll look at major thoroughfare plan. We'll look at different things within that comp plan. And I believe what you'll have a comp plan that's been expanded. So this is really exciting. It'll take probably a month or 2 to get started, but wanted to let you know. But the other thing to let you know is that the comprehensive plan is not just about the document being written. It's really about the CMP committee. It's like a public engagement. And so you as citizens really getting involved and asking different things of your town and wanting to basically engage and figure out what you want as citizens for the city. And that's how the comp plan is built. But it's really more about the citizens and the different outreach we'll have than it is really about the plan. That will come together. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Moving on, Jose Martinez, Vice Director.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is going to be my first presentation, so going to walk through some of the items and the financial. Hopefully, y'all have time to look through those items. You may have some questions, but they go through the end. That could be my presentation. All right, as of January 31, we seem to be in line with our spending on most of our expense categories. A few items that are higher than we should be for 4 months into the school year. Those items are out of our, some of those items are out of our control. But the money's have to be spent in order to keep things forward here in the city of Black. We received an ad valorem check last week, pretty substantial. So you'll see the numbers, quite a bit. Revenue numbers next month. Most of the focus is going to be on the general fund. Our computer maintenance expenses are slightly higher than normal because of upgraded replacement, building and
retained the vendor to our ice maintenance. And that's added some expense in that area as well. We've seen the maintenance number get a little bit high. Police department has a new vendor providing, leasing of, theory equipment, which again, in that area, maintenance. The other big maintenance item was one that I think we talked about last month, was the, retaining wall, project. About 47,000 that was added, to the expense. But that's only about 35% of the overall project. So we'll be seeing more expense in the future. We also invested in Google Enterprise Services, which was a great, investment, I believe, in my, opinion. But on a positive note, positive note, salaries and wages are a little lower than where we should be at Plymouth Mark for the fiscal year. That's good. Now I'm going to touch on the enterprise furnace a little bit. A whole lot going on there, but one of the expenses that's considerably over budget is the water treatment construction. Okay, that's it. It's got to be done. Seeing that probably go up in the next few months as well. Other areas that we've incurred expenses have been getting maintenance, utility billing, service order, mobile meter reading, and fast scale pay modules for quite a few groups. These are very consistent. Especially the last one, fast scale pay module that gives our citizens the opportunity to pay their bills online. So, yeah, very good for this. Okay. That's my report. Yeah.
Sure. First off, thank you. That was really good and very thorough. I appreciate that. You answered most of my questions I was going to ask you. But I guess, so one or two questions. So on some of the things like the water plant work, right, we have an offsetting CO revenue to cover that, right? So that, is that inflow being reflected on?
Yes,
the inflow side, right?
yeah,
So,
we're looking to keep those changes.
okay, so even though it shows.
We'll have some, yeah, we'll have some budget balance.
Okay. And then the only other thing I have, any red flags, anything that gives you pause if you're looking at the numbers?
As I'm looking at the numbers, no, we should be at about 25-30% of our expenses. And if you look at most of those categories, particularly the bigger categories, we're right in line where we should. So nothing, at least, from what I've seen in my experience, looking at numbers, there's nothing really alarming, no red flags. But again, I've been here about a month, so I'm trying to learn still some of the ins and outs. But right now, I don't see. Thank you.
On the fast travel pay, obviously I have not used it yet. Does the city offer any sort of discount on that if a customer pays online, or does it cost more, or is it just the same? Is it just a convenience?
I am not quite sure.
On the fast travel, on the water
The online
bill,
payments.
There's a surcharge.
There's a surcharge.
it costs a little more to pay
Yes, ma'am.
online?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's under $5, I believe, but yeah.
If you use FastGo Pay with your credit card, the credit card company charges like a fee. But you can call the city and set up auto draft and use your checking account, like routing and bank account information. And that is no cost to residents. Or write a check. And that's no.
We still take those.
I'm okay.
We take cash, you
Check,
say?
cash,
Yeah,
check,
yeah,
check.
sure. Yes.
The
Yeah.
cashless place is driving me nuts.
We still take, yeah.
How hard?
we still take-
Yeah, I know. Cashless.
Ms. Martinez, good job on the first presentation.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. And again, this is my first one. That's the way I like to present the information. I like to go through it before meeting, make my notes and present that to you. Again, I want to be very transparent as possible and let you know again if I see things. Red flags. we all discussed them with my boss, of course, with you as well, as you guys are my boss as well, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job. All righty. You should be throwing this.
Mayor, council members, and distinguished citizens and guests. It is my honor to introduce Officer Chris Griffin, the newest addition to the Blanco Police Department's command staff. Officer Griffin is being promoted from the rank of, to the rank of operations lieutenant, bringing more than 10 years of dedicated law enforcement experience and an extensive background in law enforcement. Lieutenant Griffin has began his career after leaving the military, Air Force, with the Federal Police Department, where he did over a decade there, and advanced to the rank of sergeant with the Criminal Investigation Division. We were lucky enough to obtain him from there, and we're going to honor him with. He holds a bachelor's degree from Wayland Baptist University and has additional coursework in community college in the Air Force, reflecting his commitment to continued learning. He's going to be a vital part of our command staff. He will take Lieutenant Command's position. And so, Mayor. Yeah. Go here.
Okay, raise your hand. So I say, in the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I state your name, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Police Lieutenant for the City of Blanco Police Department and of the state of Texas, and will do my best of my abilities to preserve, protect, and defend the constitutional laws of the United States and of this state. So help me God. All right. Get a picture of Independence. Oh. That's a bulletproof shirt. No pressure.
Good job.
Great job, Chief.
No pressure.
Chief coming in?
Okay.
All right. Chief, you give me a report?
Yes, I did.
Well, I've heard you. Okay, it's your time. You get to say. Okay. Real good. Yeah. Well, the full report's in the packet.
Yes.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Chief, thank you. You're doing a great job. Like you're right through your phone. So moving on, consent agenda, there's just one agenda packet. It is from the January 14th meeting. I didn't see anything jump out. Anybody have any objections to it? I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. Second. Anybody? All in favor? Okay, moving on. We're gonna take number 7, bring it up to the top. So we're gonna talk about the reallocation of sales and use tax, all that stuff. Mr. Mack?
I think we've started the process anyway on this, and I just, as I mentioned earlier, it goes beyond just the allocation of the overlap districts and just city sales tax in general. I know there's some confusion. I've talked to Warren and Pam over the last few days, trying to get some more details from the comptroller, just to make, there's a couple of minor things on there, like businesses who have used to be out of the city limits and now they're in the city limits and they would never change their address. So I would suggest the city have some sort of mechanism to quarterly or bi-monthly look through those and make sure that we don't need to alert the comptroller about specific businesses that we should be collecting from that we're not. I won't call out the business, but this particular business was over by Yet Park, and then they opened up inside inside the city limits, and they just never paid any. So we never received any sales tax that I can see from that business for a couple of years. They're no longer in business. So that's the way, that's water under the bridge. But I think a mechanism to actually watch our finances and make sure we're getting our revenue. I know a lot of other small towns do that, especially when they have other taxing districts overlapping in their zip code. It's not just a zip code. So that's the big deal. But I appreciate the conversation, and I agree. Thank you, and you folks from the library. The idea is not to take any money away, in my opinion. I'll probably speak for myself, but I just support a broader conversation of what can we do going forward. There's been a business owner outside of town that has a commercial district under development that has agreed to voluntarily annex to come into town. And it would be nice if we could share those sort of sales tax going forward as Blanco expands. I was just using an absurd example where the city limits might be up at 290. I don't want to scare anybody. Realistic, but 50 years from now, it's not out of the question that we could get some more voluntary annexation from commercial activities outside of our borders. And in my opinion, I'll pass over the floor for other comments and discussion after this comment. But since we're getting zero sales tax from any future growth of Blanco without some sort of negotiated change that supports all 3 of our taxing districts, it seems to me it's the reverse of taxation without representation. We're getting tax taken away from the citizens of Blanco without any say or representation. That's one way to look at it for the citizens of Blanco. So I think it's a good conversation. The only reason there was any, in my opinion, and in my suggestion for any possible action was if we were not going to be able to get to any kind of discussion, because this seems to be kind of a third rail in the past where we're not allowed to talk about this, then it made sense to me to poll the citizens of the city, say, can we ask for a conversation in here? So I'm not sure any action is needed. Depending on this, I'm encouraged that maybe we can actually have a discussion and some what ifs. What does this look like 10 years down the road when we might have.
Like, see, maybe we can plan maybe even our next council workshop as a emergency district.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't mean to go on and on. Thank
We can
you.
do it more of a round table even.
Yeah.
So this is something I've been wrestling with, government is a machine with many years and knobs. And, you change one thing here, one thing there, and it might help this, it might help that, but there's third order consequences, fourth order, that it takes a while to figure those things out. And in a democracy, it can take a long time to straighten them out if you don't have Elon Musk. But one of those, a number of things that sort of is a confluence, and you heard it expressed, that small towns are getting squeezed really bad. I mean, this is all over Texas. We can't annex, people can just say, I'm no longer in ETJ, it's a lot easier to say I'm no longer in the city, and we can't grow because we get nothing from it. And then these other districts can come in and even if we could grow, they get that tax. And that's fine, but it's not fine when one of them gets super fat and the other one starves to death because of unintended consequences. And each of the people in these groups are doing their job. They're sworn to, I'm sworn to look out for the interest of the city of Blanco. Unfortunately, there's a separate entity over there, the library, that's sworn to look out for the library. And it sets up the environment you see where it gets, oh, that's mine, or that's mine. And it's really all belongs to people. And we really should be able to step back and look at it and say, okay, how can we come together and solve this for the people? But as we're seeing, it's difficult at our level. So I've actually came up with a proposal. It's already been communicated to the Bounce Off Comptroller's office and the state senator. It'll take some legislative stuff, but I think it's possible because this happens all over the state. And this is best for the people. To have a mediation at that level, somebody from the comptroller's office that comes with authority, with teeth to say, hey, let's work this out. What's the balanced approach to this is best for these four citizens together and help us work that out. And they would have the authority instead of having to do 17 different referendums and stuff. They could, with the authority, with the legislature gives them, fix it. So I think having a adult in the room, say that tongue in cheek, somebody at that level that is not in any camp, that is just looking at it from that perspective, I think that'd be helpful. Now, we don't have that right now. We need to continue the conversation, but I have forwarded that idea. And I hope it takes off because that would help fix a lot of stuff. A lot of these unintended consequences, all these different laws that really squeeze small towns. We fight for every penny just so we can build a pothole. We're not sitting on the fat stash. We're just trying to survive here. And the state keeps making it harder and harder for us to do so. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation and bringing it up and everybody that spoke tonight. And again, I agree with Councilmember Moses. I think this is a great topic for the next workshop. I mean, some more conversation needs to happen around there to even better understand what's going on. Because obviously a lot of people have misinformation, incorrect information, correct assumptions all around. So we just need to make sure that we communicate as a community and have that conversation. So thank y'all for being part of the conversation.
And I'm happy to, some of y'all folks that came here, 3 minutes is short, we're having a conversation, won't go on all night, do y'all want to? Yes, ma'am.
I would love to offer to put together, I know the open meeting act really hamstrings us because you can't visit much, but I think if you've got 2 members from your council, 2 members from the library, 2 members from the ESD, we could discuss this, get a lot done. I would be more than happy to put together some presentations about sales tax, how they work, the reports that are available, and kind of look at it, because I look at you and I see that you can raise your taxes. I can't. She looks at me and says, but you've got property taxes and we don't. And so the solution is to live within your means, but to also, when you get more than you need, share that. But all of us are, none of us are, I don't know if you know what a fire truck costs. We bought one a long time ago, but they've gone up.
You want to buy a pipe cost, Senator Rabbit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we would be happy to put that together, and I think that if you got 2 people from each of the groups and kind of looked at this, because the senator's not gonna be able to do anything. And I think the other request that I would make is, I've heard about this, I'm not on Facebook, I don't do social media. But I keep hearing from Facebook that we're gonna get this, and I know a senator someplace, and it all comes back from Facebook. And I just think, I think it's sort of, my mother used to use the word tacky. I think it's sort of tacky for governments to work through Facebook. And it doesn't matter who they are, but I just think it's tacky. I think if there's a way to do it, I believe in transparency. If we got together with 6 people in a meeting, if somebody wants to come and sit there, they ought to come and sit there. I've got a nice meeting room at the ESD. And, you know, it might solve a lot of problems.
Thank you. We'll take you up on that. Yes, sir.
May I?
You may.
Just a point of information, does the city receive point of sale sales tax from market days?
Supposed to.
I'm asking that.
Comptroller doesn't give us really any breakdown of our revenue that comes in from sales tax as far as I know. They just kind of give us a lump sum and say, we got all of those.
I'm familiar with the comptroller sales tax reports. My speculation is that you probably don't, maybe you know, Libby. I tried to get a former mayor to look into that, and I don't think he fully grasped the concept. What a shock.
So my understanding, the legal requirement falls on the business to file taxes appropriately in the place of the sale.
At the point of sale.
So if the business doesn't file it correctly, then that would be a tax issue for that business entity that they would be involved in. It'd be really hard from our local government standpoint to hold each business.
Actually, it's not. I've been involved in some of those situations where we've managed to receive point of sale sales tax. Ms. Hall, I'm sure would probably echo, well, I'm not sure of anything.
Well, you
I
can
would speculate, but
have you
we
ever done-
collected them from similar situations at the behest of the local government
Would you be willing to help out?
for a fee.
If you ever got,
You're a lawyer, don't you?
Free beer at Lavender Festival.
I don't drink.
have you ever gotten a confidentiality report from the comptroller's office?
Process.
It's in process. Well, that is a report that you cannot reveal, but it is strictly for economic development and for your own budget planning. And you have the names of everyone, and if you know who goes to market days, you should know if they're paying any taxes.
There you go, Lavender Festival. Yeah.
Well,
Well, you
any of
still, you
those kind
still
of-
have everybody registered.
Yeah.
And those
I was
things
just
on
trying to
applications
make
should
a
make
point
it
of
very
information.
clear that
That's
they're gonna
right.
be charged sales tax. And so, you know, it's just, there's lots of reports out there that give you lots of information, and I can tell you, it's a full-time job, and I spent a lot of hours doing it, and you can hire a company that will take 30% of whatever they collect additionally, and it's a waste of time, because you can do it yourself if you have the manpower.
Ben, is that something in theory a part-time code compliance officer can do up during market days, or that is it deeper than that? No? Okay, done. Appreciate the information. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on, that's the end of number 7. So that's a place to get. Of course, you want to stay. Number 1, this is special use permit for a restaurant drive-through. Now, right over here on 603 Main Street.
So thank you, Mayor. This item's actually going to be tabled with the planning commission, and the reason for that, I'll just kind of explain what the needs for. But in the C1 district, you're allowed to have anything that's commercial in nature, but a drive-through, in the R5 district, you're allowed to have anything that's residential and commercial nature, but kind of a light commercial, but the drive-through is actually considered more commercial, therefore they're asking for SP. The reason for asking for it to be tabled is more information is needed, specifically on as you come in from 6th Street, there's a question on stacking. When you have to drive through the window here, And there were some questions from a couple of neighbors, the neighbor behind, and then, from another resident. And so we are actually requesting some information on that. Brandon, you want to mention something?
The main thing we were concerned about was if they're successful as we hope they would be, the volume of cars that be stacking up, they create a pretty substantial issue in the street. And so we looked at some different options in terms of where the drive-through would be versus being right there on the south side. And they're speaking to the landlord and thinking things through it. So we able to explain to P and Z, and hopefully we'll see them back next month.
You want to see him back next month, and if everything works out, you should see a positive recommendation.
So we're tabling.
Quick question, if I could. Looking at that picture, did you see the issues if they came from the west side and came in that? I know it's stacking up towards, backing up to 281 would not be good, but if that's the exit of the run, it seems that might be a little bit more manageable. Have been coming west to east on Second Street.
That's the proposal currently.
And so if it did create a line, it created a line.
Yeah, so to my understanding, the thought would be you come down here, do a U-turn and come back through, and then.
Or just come around the block.
Sure, or come around the block, but, you know, once you get 2 or 3 cars in there, then it starts getting to be a little bit more complicated.
So I have spoken to the applicants afterwards, that they are going to look at a different idea of, so there's a window here, or the window here. So I'll review this, I'll get with planning commission, and then you may see something that's revised so that it's more set up. And more in line with what the neighbors around here would be okay.
All right. That's a good question. We go ahead and table in number 1, and I neglected to say we're tabling number 7.
Thank you.
Sure. Moving on to number 2, this is resolution 2025-R002. It's the 2024 hazard mitigation plan.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we're told by, basically when we need to do anything as far as grants, anything like that, we have to have a hazard mitigation plan that is up to date. This was requested by our grant writer, so that is why we brought that we actually have seen that, could have seen that product. So.
Any questions on this?
And how often does this have to be updated and reviewed? Is that?
This is the first time we have been asked to do it since I've been here 3 years. I don't know for sure, probably in 5 years, but
It's an annual plan review. Going forward, is an annual plan review.
Okay, so you got, so, but this is the first time that.
this is the first one we brought it to
Done.
you. Yeah.
Okay.
And Blanco County did it, and Johnson City, there's a bunch of
Surrounding communities that are all part of the same plan.
yes.
I was just if you said you need some help. The neighbor's office.
Right.
Who does all of our emergency and maybe the policies updated every year, and I'll have a copy of it every.
That's a requirement of FEMA for all FEMA grants.
Like to make a motion. Like to make a motion that we approve new business item number 2, resolution 2025-R-002, approving the 2024 hazard mitigation plan.
Second. All in favor? All righty, thank you so much. Moving on, number 3. Here we go. It's the ordinance 2025-002, calling a bond election to be held on May 3rd, 2025.
So thank you, Mayor, Council. First of all, I want to introduce to you, you've met before, Angela Avila and McCall Parker is our bond counsel. As I talked a little bit about this, and then CNEC's been working very hard to put this together. And I think, Steve Sheffield, you're gonna talk a little bit here and
You bet.
so let's start with you then, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
You might put mine on, I'm up here, okay? Mayor and council, so I know we have had numerous sessions already, two workshops, I believe, in a council meeting where we discussed, in some detail the bond program. So, I'd like to, not necessarily go back through the entire 3.5-year history of CMAC coming, up with a bond proposal to deal with city infrastructure issues. But instead, what I would like to do is go through and highlight for you the highlights of the bond program that is before you for approval tonight. So, and Warren, I prepared a couple of sheets that I want to walk through with you. Actually, I have printed copies of them if you'd rather have these or before we can follow off the screen.
I handed out one to each of council members. Yeah.
Okay, so, the bond program, total of $16.6 million. These are rounded off numbers, 16.636, I think. The regulatory, according to our bond council, the regulations require us to split out or separate streets and water and wastewater projects into separate bond items. So the split out is $4.4 million for street improvements and $12.2 million for water and wastewater improvements. I would point out to you that those, the street projects and the water and wastewater projects that we anticipate being accomplished through this bond program are integrated entirely with each other. So, other than the fact that it's required that we stipulate streets and wastewater as separate projects for bond purposes, those are integrally tied with each other. And you can imagine to deal with the water and wastewater issues, we got to work into the streets. So the time frame for the bonds is up to 10 years. 10 years is the maximum amount of time that as we understand it, the bond program can have, and we anticipate that the projects we've identified should be able to be implemented within a shorter period than that. But we wanted to allow you as a council enough flexibility to adjust to changes that might occur over this 7-year period of time in the list of projects and the prioritization of those projects. So we're suggesting that the authorization stipulate that it's a 10-year program, but our expectation and our project schedule calls for implementation over a 7-year period. So the issues of the bonds doesn't occur all at one time. This is a program. The program is will call for bonds to be issued as the project schedule calls for that, and as I'll get into in just a minute, is your debt limitation that we're proposing allows, so that you have adequate capacity to borrow a certain amount of money. So that plays into that, along with the project schedule and the advice of the bond council, play into exactly when you decide that it's time for the issuance of a certain amount of bond. So in other words, we'll have a number of projects that will be ready for implementation. The values of the projects will be calculated, and you'll have the opportunity to see before you issue those bonds
how the debt service matches up with your budget and tax rate. So that can all, be dealt with, in these increments over the period of bond. So I mentioned debt limitation. What CMAC is suggesting or requesting, and there is a proposition for you to approve to agree to this, that the council would agree to authorize the sale of bonds only in amounts as you go that keep the ratio of the city's long-term debt to 5% or less of the total taxable assessed value of all property in the city. The total amount that you're able to tax against, 5% of that would be the maximum amount that you would have to live the debt, city debt. So the idea behind this is twofold. One is to demonstrate to the bond investors the city's willingness to show restraint in managing its debt and provide assurance to taxpayers of the same thing, that the taxpayers are going to know that you are managing debt responsibly by limiting your debt to a certain percentage of total assessed value. So just in note and passing, and I think we've already mentioned this before, the total assessed value of property in the city has increased dramatically over the last period of time that we were able to get records, 22 years. It's averaged at about 8.3% a year. So, so that coupled with the pay down in debt that you're processing consistently should create, and by our spreadsheets that you all looked at, creates capacity for you to borrow money to a certain to that level. So the other thing that CMAC has done over the last 3.5 years is we have produced a capital improvements program, and that's, I'm referring to a schedule, and then you have this project schedule basically that we've based our estimate of $16.6 million on is the projects that are contained within that schedule. The selection of those projects has been based on what I refer to and what was referred to in the HR Green report, we mentioned several times. It's the criticality factor. How critical, what projects are most critical to the functionality of the city's utility systems? We're not looking at glamorous projects. We're not necessarily looking at those that people are clamoring to have the street fixed in front of their house. But we're looking at projects that are the most critical in terms of safety and preservation of the city's overall utility system. One of the things that we discovered was that there are many instances where we have materials, pipes and piping that is way beyond its useful life. Those are factors that play into HR Green's report on the wastewater system that them to identify these projects, specific projects that they deem to be critical and requiring the most immediate. So what we're suggesting is the city adopt the capital improvement program, follow it each year. As budget time rolls around, the city should take the capital improvements program and use it as an identifier for projects to include in the upcoming budget, and then measure that against the amount of debt that the city could take on. And then issue bonds accordingly. Capital improvement program that we view it as a living document. It's a document that can and should be modified constantly. Whenever there's a project that comes up, rises to the level of more critical than the ones we already have on the list, they should go on the list. That's the way we will approach producing that for you. And so that document will be upgraded and updated consistently and used by the city at budget time. So that's kind of an overview of the way we see the formation of this bond program. Yeah, the other thing I want to talk about briefly before my voice gets out is on the next page, which is highlights and the reasons, the top, I said 7 reasons for moving forward with bond collection. Bonds are only one form of debt that you can utilize to fund projects. So it's specifically what we put before you now because of these factors. One is buy-in of the citizens. By using this program of getting voter approval, you're getting buy-in from the rest of the citizens to participate in the bond program and choose that as a methodology for the project. This represents a path forward. You know, it's been a long time since the city has been in a position or to approach and deal with the infrastructure issues. And that's for the most part been a lack of financial resources. This plan is a way we see that provides a solution to the lack of financial resources. And this, the other thing I have pointed out before is this is only the beginning. This is the beginning of what needs to be viewed as a long-term plan. We're talking in the term of 8 to 30 years. So this is the first phase. The other thing about this plan is flexibility. It's one thing to stand up here and talk about a $16 million program, but the reality is that even when this program is put in place, nothing happens until you approve and fund individual bond issues. So that will happen, by way of methodology I mentioned a minute ago. At budget time, you will have the opportunity to go through your normal process and make debt service calculations and make sure that they fit within the item's tax rate level where you want to be. This is addressing a problem that has been around for a long time and needs to be fixed. And there's really, I don't think any more discussion needs to happen about that. I think we all agree on that. We believe this is the most cost-effective way that allows the city to use financing resources that are less costly than other alternatives. With bonds, we can generally get lower interest rates and longer loan terms, and that will allow the debt service payments to be at a lower level than they would be the certificates of obligation or any other kind of normal loan. Consequences of doing nothing. We've sat around in our meetings and talked about this many times. What's the alternative? And doing nothing is, we believe, is not an acceptable alternative. As we all know, things are going to increase in cost. We have inflation that we deal with constantly, and not doing anything just creates more and bigger problems to fix. We also run the risk of falling into non-compliance with state regulatory agencies that don't address most of our water and wastewater problems. And there's always the opportunity or potential, I suppose, that private enterprise would step in and try to solve our problems or make offers to us to buy our systems and take things over. But if that happens, costs are gonna go through the roof. Private enterprise is gonna have to earn a return on their investment. And they will, by nature, have to elevate the cost of and rates to make it worthwhile for them to do. And the city would lose control of the process. So, plan out, as far as we know, there's no other plan out there that's forward to deal with infrastructure. The costs continue to escalate. We're at a good point in the status of city finances and the management of finances. Perhaps the biggest one, I think the most important one for our committee is we need project experience. We need to get some projects under our belt. So the city has the information on real-time costs and real-time experience in the ground, on the ground, to project new projects when they should be done, what they're gonna cost, with some accuracy. And successfully conducting the bond program creates credibility for future finance. So, I note at the bottom, I think this is creating another tool in your toolbox for long-term management of the city. You know, there are other sources of financing, but we believe that bonds, general obligation bonds, offer the best option for this point. So, at this point, I'm gonna ask Tim to, I guess, present the language of the bonds proposal to you.
Hello, good evening. Good evening, Mayor. Once again, I should get to do with my cover. Morning, it's nice to see you all. So, the ordinance under business item 3 of your agenda, if approved, essentially authorizes the city of Winfield to call an election on the 3rd, 2025. And it also mentions the conduct of the election or how it will be conducted more precisely. For example, it says the city will conduct with the county, which is not uncommon, and to have an elections administrator, and it provides the poll places, things like that. In section 1, you'll see it also includes the measure, which essentially describes, the measures, which because there's 2, which essentially describe the projects that your committee advises you all to move forward on. One,
Where's Petrolia, Texas? We're the city council of the Blanco of Petrolia, Texas. It's yeah, you copied and pasted.
It's under measure B in the first one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not in my version. I'm so sorry. We might have not circulated the last copy, but rest assured.
It's okay. I want to make sure that our voters aren't confused if we approve this.
No, we'll triple check. So thank you for catching that. But yeah, so section 1 mentions the 2 projects. One, measure A and proposition A being related to the street projects, and then measure B and proposition B being related to the water and wastewater projects. And last but not least, those measures and proposition will also need to include an amount, which I received tonight. That being the 4,411,843,000 for streets, and then the other number being around 12 million for water and wastewater. So unless you have any other questions, now the appropriate for all to entertain a motion that includes the amount for those projects.
A question just on the mechanics. So so what's being proposed is the total of 16.6 million on the May ballot.
Correct.
Right, but not 16.6 is getting issued immediately within the projects approved by city council by this budget.
Correct. Correct.
Continue.
Yes, exactly. So you're not issuing any debt tonight. You're just saying we're going to call an election. You're putting everybody in notice and doing everything in accordance with state law.
Question. So it's spread out over several years. We got so much money. When does that hit people's tax bills? I mean, as we take it, I mean, it's on an annual basis, it's put into the energy seeking, how does that?
You fund each project, each tranche in your budget, and then go.
At the next year.
The tax rate, et cetera. It'll have it on there.
At the beginning of the year, I mean, you have to
It
spend
happens
it.
in the budget cycle. Each budget cycle. Okay.
And then also your FA would weigh in on how to structure the deal, and over the course of how long it would take to pay that back. So it would be a little different for each tranche depending on how much you issue.
Obviously, the amount we're asking for is a maximum amount, correct, over that time, period of time. If we were to choose to use less or borrow less, that money would do that. We wouldn't have to borrow the full 16.6 million. if we chose not to over that time period.
Well, this is a little different than, general, because these were general obligation bonds, which we call contract with the voters. So this is a little bit different than the COs, which we visited on before. So with that, yes, the not to exceed amount, you, can technically issue less, but with general obligation bonds, if you include a number, you would want to stand by it. Because voters, are telling you that's what they want. These are the amounts they're authorizing along with the project. So if you wish to issue less, then that would be a conversation to have.
Things can change. Period of time. Just
No, and that's a good question. The AG is, you know, they're a stickler for rules, but they know circumstances change things. So, you know, it's a matter of circumstances, but I would say, generally speaking, you want to that number.
Guys have any questions?
And they should have suggested a motion, I would just, that was circulated.
Suggested motion, let's see. I don't see suggested motion.
Okay. I can, I don't know who's making a motion, but, I can read it out. It's, I move that the council adopt an ordinance on bond elections with proposition A in the amount of, yes, of 4,411,843, and proposition B in the amount of 12,224,157. Yep, that's it.
We got a copy of that one.
What she said.
Yeah.
However, technical we want to.
Promotion based upon the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, I can share this with whoever.
Okay, so she moves what she says, there's a second for the motion. So this is that's what she said motion, right?
What she said.
All right, so there's a motion, but it's legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure Lori.
Yeah, make sure you mark it. Don't add any zeros. So there's a motion, a second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
I voted for.
I don't see yours. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Moving on, let's go to number 4 here.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
That's what she said.
Where, Mr. Shelby stated, as part of the program, I'm looking forward to
All right.
recommendation was the resolution saying,
CO percentage limitation. I substituted this resolution, we changed the wording of the last, and therefore it's resolved, because, the earlier version did not pick up both revenue-based and property tax-based bonds. So this 5% will work against all indebtedness of the city of any type, whether it's COs, bonds, etc. So I just handed you the most current version and asked you to consider that and approve it as a fiscal policy of the city that Mr. Sheffy has discussed and all of you have discussed at these various workshops. So.
I have a question. We haven't discussed a policy citywide. The assessed values have grown at 7 or 8% per year. And so sounds like you're asking that we do a long-term policy here going forward. I'm sure any future council can turn this around if they need to go. Or if the city starts growing at 10% a year. This is the first I've heard of any discussion that we're going to as a total fiscal policy. I knew that was going to be for this bond thing. So Steve, can you speak to that? Has that been discussed amongst your group that if we want to build a rec center or we want to do something else and the bonds are taking 5% and we're growing at 10%, then we can't add another percent to build a rec center or city pool or, whatever in the future?
Well, if the assessed value is growing at, say, 10% a year.
We're setting an ordinance that we have to cap all city, all municipal debt at 5% assessed value. That's a pretty big decision, but I'm not even going to consider that now.
Well, but I guess
certainly for this bond program,
That's all we're talking
we have
about.
talked.
That's all we're talking about. And this is a
You said for all city debt.
Well, this is with respect to any issued long-term debt that's described in that. And that is
80 is described in item number 3. Or is it just
in the whereas section
I'm sorry.
In the results section.
I want to be clear that what are we
Talking about full debt load, or full debt load cannot go over 5% of the assessed value.
Total amount of bonds, notes, certificates, and other
5% for
obligations.
the streets and centers. That means there's no more debt.
No, from what I understand, full debt load.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's this resolution. This is the first I've heard of that.
Our original point was addressing bonds, but still giving flexibility to council to manage emergencies by saying we could do more if we had to do a CO to manage something massive that this town has to address right now. You just aren't going to sell bonds to cover that. You're going to find another avenue for funding. But we were trying to give some control to the people.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to setting an absolute debt limit on the city and future councils, but this is the first time that it's been proposed that it wouldn't just be associated to these infrastructure bonds. And so if we're going to put it across the board and we end up doing the 5% for this, then it's going to take another action to borrow $10.
Bobby, I'm not sure. I mean, if the assessed value increases by 10%.
What's our current debt load compared to our assessed value right now?
5%.
We're at,
Right.
we're maxed out right now.
Right. So you'll only create capacity to borrow more money right now by paying off debt and by increase in property value.
If I may, I would be fine. It's a grand idea. In fact, that I don't think anybody on this council has considered just doing across the board all debt, not just capital improvement debt. I would be fine making a motion to have this resolution codify what you just presented in our bond program, that it's not to go over 5% for this bond program we just approved to the citizens to vote on. And that, if I was a voter, that would certainly make me confident. Okay, well, we're voting in $16 million, but it's not going to go over 5% of the. I think that would be a valid resolution for this evening, and I'm not opposed to expanding that to anything the city might ever think of in the future. But I think I would recommend we table that and bring that up next month if we're going to talk about all that together. Because this is the first I've heard of that
concept.
This is general obligation, Bitcoin. So my general obligation bond, we'll talk about tonight, so COs are a general obligation. Yeah.
I know how popular those are.
No, but I mean, he kind of comes down, it's not a general obligation. Yeah. Leave by definition.
Yeah, that's my question, Ted. That we revise that.
This is entirely a result of the recommendation by CMAQ.
Yeah.
It can be, first of all, it can be repealed. It's a resolution, it's not an ordinance. Ordinances can be repealed also. But this is a resolution that can be repealed at a future date. I had a long conversation this morning with non-council about it. They frankly don't see this in most cities. Your CMAQ is recommending it as a starter for the general fiscal policy, and that's all it is. This council can revise
That
it.
if it was within the purview of CMAQ, we're talking about, yeah, I think anything that's, well, yeah, sure, downtown beautification, future rec center 10 years from now. And yes, you can always reverse a proposal or bond, but it does sound precedent. I'm not opposed to limiting the city's ability to add debt. But to just say, well, if we're gonna do it for streets and sewer, let's just do it for anything we can possibly imagine.
Yeah, and that's where, well, I was gonna say, so, and again, overall, I like this idea. I appreciate the fiscal responsibility to do that. I would also say that if it's not needed in order to get the bond on the May election and what we just did, we table this until we can do it. Like, I don't want us to rush into voting on something that we're not quite
So yeah,
ready for and fully understand, it sounds, so.
so there are a number of things. Yeah, as Councilman Moses asked and found out, we're obligated to take this money. Or we should have the term of this, right? There's a number of things I can see where it gets out of whack. So like 1 year, we have to do a whole bunch of stuff and not so much the next. That could be, where it levels out over that term. The other thing, what happens if we have a black swan event? Crazier things that happen and property values stall or go down. And we're still obligated to borrow the money, we're sort of in a pickle. Are we not?
Our property values go up 100% in 1 year, let's say. No, but I mean, my property did. So, doesn't mean that I can handle paying twice the debt load next year that I can this year.
No, but I think the difference here is that you've agreed to a finite limit on this particular bond program of $16 point something million. If we have these extraordinary years that y'all are anticipating might happen, and property values go up 10% or 100%, that's going to create much more additional capacity for you to borrow other money to do other projects. But you're capped at a percentage of that income, but that's going to yield a lot more capacity to borrow.
I would say something like, Biden got back in office, everything could tank, but it's not partisan, so I won't say that. But there are scenarios where the market could go down. It goes down.
Absolutely.
I think the original conversation was, let's say that happens and it stalls, then you can't use the bonds to finance something. But then if something happens and you have a massive problem where you gotta get $3 million, you get a CO, which that's what it's for, to handle the emergency. It surpasses the 5% that we had set, but that's not the bonds. You found the money somewhere else. Once you pay stuff off, then you sell bonds again when you can.
Yeah,
That's the conversation we've had the whole time.
And I think I don't want to speak for everybody, so I don't think anybody's necessarily against setting this fiscal policy and being conservative. I think it just was, I remember the presentation of keeping it at the 5. I think just presentation of a resolution to really codify it and without diving into some of these things, I think is the hesitation. So it's not a disagreement with it. I think we just need to talk more about it. So
I can not repeat my other statement. This was just for the CMAQ capital improvement plan and the purview of the bond committee or the CMAQ committee and this bond. Because that was certainly so the need that we would cap that 5% the assessed value. If the scope of this resolution was just for this bond discussion we've been having tonight in the last few weeks, it's just if we're going to do it for all city debt in perpetuity until it's that needs some more discussion. So would it, I see the value of setting that.
I don't see a problem with
modifying
that.
that.
I don't think it's.
The original resolution had just general obligation. I originally captured that. Bond council suggested this new language. I put it forward. I think your point is well taken. It is a resolution and it can be repealed. If you want to focus it on the original point of the recommendation, which was this program.
So the one in the
That's what
packet,
they're talking about.
yeah, the one in the packet says long-term general obligation day.
Correct.
Is that so?
For capital improvement.
Yeah, what's been the conversation?
You can stick with that one as well. I think the.
What was bond council's
Well,
reasoning?
the reasoning was, is that really your intention here? Because there's a lot of other general obligation. Back, revenue back or ad valorem back. That was the point he was getting at. I think the point is well taken to back off and talk about 5% on this program.
That
Then
makes perfect sense.
we're all, so I would suggest you just.
We have plenty of time before the election to get in there, tweak
Yeah.
it, and do it next month. So
I will make a move that fiscal policy, city of Blanco, an all-time long-term general obligation debt of the city. The total taxable assessed value for capital improvement projects as presented be maintained at 5% or less.
So specifically to this,
I think that's perfect. I think that's
perfect.
very good.
and it can be repealed at the next council meeting.
Is there not?
Well,
If there's a,
I think this would set the voters' expectations.
I think that's good.
Fix it up for this election.
So he's going off the old one that's in the packet and added in specific language for this
Capital
bond.
improvement, general obligation.
We've got it on the table. We'll pick it up. Don't have it on my list.
And I think that's what the voters would want.
Okay, so
That's what
Steve
I'm
pushing for to begin with.
that was the motion. Okay, is there a second?
So I don't disagree with that either, and I don't, we're not in the discussion really, but. But is everybody comfortable with this? Just since the new information came forward, I just want to make sure we're not rushing into something. I mean, I know this, what's in the packets, what it seemed like we're talking about and all that, but I just don't want to bring this. We didn't like the new one and now we're rushing into the other one. So I just want to make sure that.
That's a good point. So do we have to
Withdraw your motion.
And I'm not trying to make it difficult. I just want to make sure,
Well, but a question on that, I mean, are we okay doing no motion at all on this? It's, we can try to explain this to the voters, that yes, we're gonna be fiscally responsible, and we can hold our people to
I
fire.
think about next month. We got plenty of time.
Yeah, we just do it next month.
Effort.
The only reason for maybe hesitating that I can see is, part of the reason we thought this was a good idea in this committee was that it would be a big selling point to the voters. I think and we have a limited amount of time, as the council and helping to interact with the public and make sure everybody understands the
I think
program.
we could expand this to mean any debt for the city in the future in the second motion without repealing this. If we wanted to hamstring any future debt, let's be even more strict than this, to do with every concept. And I keep using the recreation center as just an example. It's just an example.
They went to vote and nobody seconded it, so.
I'm the mayor.
Sorry.
So, the case has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I agree with kind of what everyone's saying tonight. And the only thing in my mind is, I know what we're saying, but sometimes that doesn't always get communicated to the public. And if we don't pass this tonight, people might think that it's because we don't want to have it. So that's my only concern. I don't know if it's a big deal.
It's such a hurricane thing. It's not. I pass it next month and it's more thought out. I think no one's gonna. Who's their option to put this to?
There's some significant distrust in our community that they can't trust us to walk down the street without being corrupt. So it'd be nice that, like some voters might say, well, they can't really fight for it. And they ask for things to listen.
Okay.
But not just talk.
So there's a motion, a second. It's for the version that's in the packet and it adds the language that is specific to this bond package. That's.
Which is what's been presented by CMAC.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's a motion and a second. There's no more discussion, all in favor? Is that your hand up, Candy?
No.
Okay, there you go. Okay, all opposed?
No, I was, no, I was
Yes.
for. I was-
Yeah, it's going. Okay, we're gonna get. I say, all in favor, I want to see all the hands at once, okay? It's not your hand up here, but that's all around, okay? That's your rule. You're sort of like this, and it's like I can't decide, it's like, okay.
My eyes have both directions, just like mine.
Okay. Number 5. Okay, this is the bond oversight. And this says draft behind it. There's 2 things that on this that I would like to tweak, Tim. One is on the purpose and mission. I would like to put language in there that committee, when this bond is nearing the end of its window, its term, that they take steps to bring it back to the next one. Whatever that means, they hand the torch to the new bond committee, whatever, but I know that what things work around here, and if we don't put that somewhere where it's gonna pop up, this bond will likely just run its course and, we got a little bit done, and then never get picked back up.
Some kind of continuity
Yeah, continuity thing.
rises from the dead. Or, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one is, as far as the membership, I'm wondering, it is the, where it says that it's having residents of the city or individual own or operate a business or real property within Blanco County. I just don't know if we want to leave 1 or 2 seats open, because this is really good people that really love Blanco and really would like to help. That we don't want to turn away that might live in Spring Branch. So I would like to have at least 1 seat, that's more at large. Yeah, we don't have to fill it. It's just, I don't want to turn someone away who's gonna help us. Yeah. Well, when they come here, I'm just saying, this is about making sure it's done right. This is about making sure that the wheels are on the bus, that it's done professionally, that we're getting the best bang for our money, that we're choosing good contractors, and that things are moving forward. And yeah, there's a lot of people that can help. And I don't, I'm just saying, I think that's restrictive. Trying to think down the road.
It was just a note from the workshop that changed, and the prohibition of conflict of interest prohibition language was discussed, not voted on, it was just discussed at the workshop. That's why they're in there. So for your deliberation and consideration.
This is a little bit vague. Operate a business with a market-based vendor qualified.
Literally, yes.
Okay, well then I guess.
Literally, yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I guess I'm not concerned about that. I mean, if somebody's not doing something in Blanco County.
Yeah.
But yeah, that doesn't mean own a business in Blanco.
Okay.
And so as far as the membership, I sent this to council, and I unfortunately the only copy I had phones and email addresses, so I can't hand this out, except for the council, because that's supposed to be posted. But we'll make it public if it's gratified. We go on the website. And Steve Jimmy.
Yes.
You have met all the gentlemen. And I took all the nominees and I took everybody that raised their hand, and so all happens to be gentlemen. But you met them all that are interested in this, and you're comfortable they can do a darn good job?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, have you added more of them?
No, just the ones you had. I'll read the list here. We have Sidney Cox Paving. We have Dennis Moore Sr., Harvey Lindeman, Danny Ubale, Paul Granberg, Kenny Fuller. He lives down in Spring Branch. He's the president of Joris. They don't do this. There's not the work they do, but he knows people, and he said, "Hey, I can help. I can give you good folks about all the schoolwork." Yeah, they're doing the schoolwork. So he does business in town. And then Matt Hurd, have met with, myself, most of them with, Councilmember McClung and members of the CMAC committee. Folks who've never been, as far as I can tell, a more bedrock, above reproach group of folks put together our committee in Blanco. This is it. This is a solid team, and they're willing to serve. And so that's who's on the proposed bond committee. And again, everybody that raised their hand and everybody that was nominated.
And that's, how many is that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we'd get one from CMAC and one from Council, right?
Well, I think you were, yes. Yeah, the way this is written.
That's capped.
It just occurred to me that if you wanted to have 2 other slots open, you could change this to say that the ex officio members are extra and bring your total membership to 11.
I think that's good.
Either way.
Never turn away a good volunteer.
And then for the, all of these people meet the requirement of
Yes.
owner operated business or property.
In Blanco County, yes. One is market based, but there lives in T. No, kidding. But no, they're all connected. So the one question is to make it where the ex officio members are on top of the 9. So they could be, we can add 2 more if we want to. It's ironclad that if they want to bid on anything, they're out of the committee. That's in here, right? Okay.
Or
Yeah.
they have to step away from the committee.
Yeah.
The way it's written.
Questions?
I could go either way on the step away or just recuse themselves from any conversation for those meetings.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable going either way. I think I can hear the other council ones.
Well, with this group, there's nobody that's gonna ever know or do that or want to. Yeah. But if there's a future member. Any comments, questions, anybody?
I think it's necessary to do that, you members, I got a document so we can take it. Not that we have members fill the slot, fill somebody's who come forward.
If more people this caliber come forward, we'd be forced to turn them down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. These are folks that don't serve on committees. We're very
So
blessed.
you're saying if you're good with in addition?
In addition,
In addition,
that is
okay.
correct, yeah. 9 members.
Let's get, okay, then.
Otherwise,
So you're 9 and 5 to 9, they're all volunteers. And the other 2 are, well, they're all.
our more important volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion. On new business, item number 5, a motion that we have the creation of a bond committee and that we have the addition of 2 extra members, 9 members and 2 official members.
Yeah, this slated.
And yep, in this slate of members are our 7 starting members.
Is there a second? Don't everybody jump in. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Do we have to decide this tonight?
We should. We got a bond on the ballot.
We got a bond on the ballot.
I want folks to get into this stuff now. So
But if the bond doesn't pass, we don't need to play.
then it goes away. Then they can meet and talk about nothing and drink beer. I don't think
Committee's got a lot of work to do before the election.
Okay, is this the committee part of getting passed?
No, they would, and in fact, being on this committee, they can't actually advocate for it. All they can do is educate as a committee member. Yeah.
They can express their own opinions.
I'm telling you, if I was gonna do a big project and I could ask these guys to look it over for me, I'd do it in a heartbeat. This is who you want to look it over still. So there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. Opposed, and you're abstaining because of your dad. Okay, so 4-0 on abstention. Excellent. Very good. Thank you so much. Number 6. This, take possible action to approval of task order number 1. City engineer on monthly basis, agreement between owner and engineer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, one of the things we were looking at doing here, was having a task order system. I think the mayor requested it, so it's members of council. And what this will really do, is that the very first task order is more on a monthly basis. So, for example, we have different things that look at drainage, utilities, those sort of things, reviews that come up, and this task order system is set up at not to exceed $8,000. If it does in a particular month, then I'll come to you and ask for a variance from that. And there may be specific reasons why that could happen. There could be a drainage review that's $5,000 that will reverse for them, different things like that. I also want to mention this doesn't, I don't believe this will be cumbersome because major projects that are coming up, things like this bond referendum, the things like 2024A, those will come in as a separate request or a separate agreement because they'll actually have to be a different task order. This is just a general task order to really get SPI started. As you remember, a couple of months ago, the board of this SPI as a lead engineer. I think what this will do is really make sure that you're following the money, make sure that we're getting value with our engineer and our engineering process. So that is cooperation between us and SPI, and that's what we're going to with your questions of staff. Or your questions of SPI, that is also here, Terry.
How does that compare to what we have a budget? I think net this limit each month will be at $96,000.
So we have $110,000 for overall engineering. The reason why we capped it a little bit below 110 is because sometimes there are things like surveys, there are sometimes other things that we have. And again, there may be a month that can go over for whatever reason. And like I said, we had a couple months ago a drainage fee and it was $5,000. I would bring that to you and say, hey, this is what happened. But if we give $110,000 budget for general engineering services between the general fund, water, and sewer. So this
drainage, the drainage fee that's reimbursable would not be part of that.
It is. But for example, we had a project that was an extra $5,000, and then we're getting that. That's going back to the general fund, and that's revenue. So yes, it could blow the budget by $5,000, but you as council would know that we're actually being reimbursed for that. It's hard to say what exact revenue we're getting any given year, and it's also really hard on engineering expenses, keep them in line. I think this does that in a way without being cumbersome.
I like the reimbursable.
Yes.
Sorry?
Agreement wise, all the.
Oh, yeah, I wrote it up for them after they all talked about it. I think it's a great system compared to what you all had, in fact, I recall Council Member Moses talking about having a sort of fixed task order deal that you could look at every month. And then there's a separate addendum for separate task orders on the project, intense projects.
So, as long as we don't get into just a blanket invoice of $8,000 a month without any details of how was that?
So I was just talking to Jerry, and we didn't get a question speed, but the question we just had before the meeting was, what if it only goes to 5,000? I said, well, it is the bill that it is, and I don't know, I can probably get counsel after I get that billing, I can always send them the bill. And we usually have, with this task order, it'll say specifically the specific hours for this project, specific hours for this project. They're probably a few weeks behind, so you may see, May's bill in the middle of June, but you certainly provide it.
Yeah, and I believe from what they presented to us, they're gonna be honest about this and say, they're not just gonna make sure they spend every $8,000 on reviewing a stop sign.
That's correct. And of course, every month, use council, the mayor, the signer, and mayor pro tem signs off on all checks, so you can always review that if you want.
Yeah, I'm confident they got the message from the council, and the reason we're looking for another engineer is so they don't just fill their entire budget just by number two.
So, more discussion on this. I'll entertain a motion.
Also move that we accept this task order as presented.
There's a second. I'll second. All in favor? Oh, that's the way to do it. Good job. Thank you so much. That was better, wasn't it?
That was awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Very good. Number 8. We're moving on here. This is Pedestrian Alternative Transportation Modes Committee.
We have our chairperson, Sarah Munger.
Feels good to stand. Everybody else is good to stand. Thank you for your work. Thank you for having me again, Sarah Munger. I'm here on behalf of the Pedestrian and Alternative Transportation Modes Committee. So November, I got to give you all an update on the work that we've done with the city so included a future active transportation plan in the city, and that the committee would be applying for an active transportation or for a transportation alternatives grant called the TA grant from Texas. So just to recap a little bit of what that grant and that plan can include, so an active transportation planning document, in addition to the actual plan itself, those grant funds can be used for up to 30% of final design, including construction plans, specs and estimates, right-of-way mapping, utility identification, and some additional environmental documentation. So today I just want to provide an update on the application process and Blanco's eligibility. So again, when I was here in November, I was under the impression that Blanco would continue to be eligible for transportation development credits. And that means that the community would not be responsible for the otherwise required 20% match that is required for the TxDOT grants. And historically, Blanco has been eligible for these transportation development credits or TDC. But this year, the application opened in January, and we were reviewing the program guide, and we are not eligible for TDCs. Meaning we would have to provide a 20% match with grant. And so tonight, I think it's just a discussion tonight and likely no action, just to digest it and everybody to speak to the options. So I want to discuss why Blanco is no longer TDC eligible, the process to date, and then potential options. So there's 2 reasons or 2 ways to be TDC eligible, and the backup material should have included, I think the first reason for that, which is, the backup material, Appendix A, and I think Lori, you got my updates.
I think I copied it. Yes.
Thank you so much. So it should include the program guide, and then Appendix A in the program guide outlines all of the communities that TxDOT has said, hey, you're TDC eligible. And I include that just so you can see.
Sorry, we're fumbling for pages.
Yes, well, it's table alphabetically organized and from the list. And one of the reasons is Blanco is no longer considered under TxDOT the disadvantaged community. And that is the second item that was included in the agenda backup is the minute order from TxDOT Commission finding, under its rules, all of the communities that are economically disadvantaged, but it was also not on the ballot. So even if you're not economically disadvantaged, though, you can still just be eligible for TDCs if you have a population less than 200,000. Your state average per capita, you are below the state average per capita taxable property value, below state average per capita income, and above state average employment. And Blanco does not meet at least the last two criteria related to per capita income and employment. So I think this is, it's a good thing for Blanco's growth, or obviously growing, but we're in the growing pains, I think, and this means that our growth has pulled us out of that eligibility. So what does this mean for our application and where we are? So although we are no longer eligible, the committee would to pursue an infrastructure CA grant with TxDOT for the development of the active transportation plan. And so the first step, and why I'm here today, is the first step is a pre-application, which is due February 21st in 10 days. That is completely not submittal. It's a prerequisite. You have to submit it to even be eligible. It's non-committal. It's just like a 2-page form, which means I'd like to apply, and this is how much it's, and this is what we're seeing. We would check and not Then you have to schedule a meeting with your TxDOT rep before April 4th to discuss the project. After that, if your TxDOT rep to discuss the project, you get to talk with them to detailed application. You get invited to apply for the detailed application, and that is due on June 20th. So for the pre-app, that's kind of where we are right now. That identifies the grant funding that we would seek. And in the past, when we applied, we saw $100,000 from the prior applications that I've looked at. And the TxDOT rep, Michelle Moe, has advised us that that is too low to seek for an active transportation plan. That a competitive grant would really be something around $200,000. So that would be a $40,000 match. The pre-application deadline is in 10 days, and it's non-committal, and changes can be made after the fact, and we have time to work with our TxDOT rep. I would like to proceed, and the committee would like to proceed with submitting the pre-application to at least get through that first stage. But that brings me to this last piece of this, which is, okay, but then what, and where does that, if it was a $200,000 grant and we were to get it, where would that $40,000 come from, and what potential actions are needed by council? So we have to meet with our district rep in April. So I would ask for action in March to approve continue applying for the TxDOT application, and also identifying the source for that 20% match requirement. And then if we were approved to continue applying, we would likely come back in May to ask for approval of the detailed application and a resolution saying that we support applying for this grant and an active transportation plan. So last bit, I know it's been a late night. So I have at least identified 3 potential sources of funding and very open to other ideas. The committee has $1,000 that came from Blanco Wheels and Feet. That could go towards it. The award would not come through October, and so that would be next fiscal year. So there could be options to start developing funds in the next, and out of the general fund, right? So allocation out of the general fund for the next fiscal year, and there are no changes to this year's budget. And the third one would be the Resilient Communities Grant. And I just want to shout out first, congratulations to everybody in the room who worked on that. It's really, really incredible. And I understand that this is for the community master planning efforts, and the committee's view that the active transportation plan is the piece of that master plan and should be incorporated into that. And given that the committee says that we use planning funds for 30% design, right-of-way mapping, survey, and utility identification, a really useful way to maximize those funds, and it would be serve dividends not only the alternative transportation committee, but
lot of other work that the city is doing, that people have talked about tonight. There could also be a combination of these efforts, right? And so that's what I wanted to bring for discussion, and previewing what would come in March for an ask.
Last question.
Yeah.
As I understand it, the matching, 20% matching is a commitment to match. They don't have to put that cash up front.
We don't have to make that, it's a commitment, and then we would match that in next year's fiscal budget when we award things in October.
Yeah, so when you get the award, I think we can certainly get like $40,000 in my opinion. And I don't disagree with you that the planning portion of that could be part of the master plan program, I think. Okay, there's no way to specify using some of that even for the streetscape planning if there are funds available.
I did talk to, our grant writer about $300,000 that was just granted to us for that process. The comprehensive plan will look at transportation and alternative transportation modes. I don't know how much that we go towards that, but that is a component
portion
of
of
it.
that. And also, there's been some rumors that there might be some philanthropic groups that would like to donate money for projects such as this. So could some of that matching fund come from the private donation?
I don't think that there's a restriction on it if the city that funds
Donate to the city and.
I know it's not popular if they live outside of the city limits, so the proposed nonprofit may have to only restrict funds from citizens, voting citizens. I say that tongue in cheek.
So you want to stick around a little bit and talk about AI? I'm feeding all the city stuff into a GPT. And there is no better tool on earth for looking for grants. It'll go out and find everything out there. We are, and it'll bring it up and then we'll fill out the application. So you just show you how to do that. It's the most powerful. I mean, it is a grant writing machine.
I don't know if my work authorizes me to use ChatGPT on my own. What do you advise it?
Come see you.
If I may,
Think to set up a chat about with my face.
Yeah.
certainly reflected, especially if we were to roll part of this effort as part of our master planning
Yeah.
committee, and you've been volunteered, but I don't know, I think you're aware, of this. We talked about this before, potentially running this part of the master planning process. And lowering-
I did that when I was volunteering, but I did submit volunteer form yesterday. So
Yes,
maybe
I
we're
know.
on.
I think it's called voluntold.
That's right, so, I think the timing of this is good, since we have the grant money, and in addition to that, I know Tim has been working on for a meeting with the Parks and Wildlife, and I've talked to Sarah about this. I would love for you and Sarah to join us, meeting with Texas Parks and Wildlife about bringing this alternative transportation and walkability park as part of this larger plan. Didn't mean to take you off topic there, but Tim, I kind of put you on the spot. I think we're just waiting for a date.
They're rounding their people up. I think there's about 5 or 6 people that will be in that meeting, so I'll have something for you. Probably,
I'd love to
I hope
invite,
this week or next.
I'd love to invite both of you guys, Councilman Swenson and yourself, to come to the Parks and Wildlife meeting. But
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on this, and I mean, yeah, for sure, I would say yes, do the pre-application, and thank you all for putting it on the agenda with enough time for us to chew on some of this and the timing and the commitment and all of that, so.
Mike, you have your hand up back there, sir. Just out of curiosity, excuse me, can the increased match be in kind as well, or does it have to be cash?
That you can, TxDOT has a very long process for in-kind donations. So if you would like to donate in-kind services, but I think that it's a question of would we be willing to go through all those hoops to do that, because then you kind of function as a contractor with that TxDOT. So it's complicated. I guess.
You get 40K in kind.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You talked about the money, but she also mentioned compatibility with the other programs. This is going to require survey. Survey is done for this. We use for CMA, we use for streetscape. So this is very nice for practicality.
Thank you so much. Yeah. We're ready. Let's see. This is number 9. I had to ask for this. I've been brainstorming it. And in fact, it was the Night Sky folks that made me think about it. And the methodology, because there are obvious code violations around town. And the idea is we'll collect them and we'll do triage. We'll set aside a chunk of them. We'll hire a part-time person to go and knock them out. That avoids 89-year-old men getting tickets for chickens cross the field. Farmers getting tickets for their pig field being too tall. So this way, we're not just turning someone loose to run willy-nilly. We're curating possible violations, and then we're bringing someone on very efficiently to enforce it. I think the idea of bashing it up with Night Sky is fantastic. Mr. Eskin, go on.
Yeah, I think summarize it just fine, Mayor. I think the plan would be to, well, first of all, the high grass ordinance and the loose animal ordinance has been removed from our code, so that wouldn't be an issue at this point. It wouldn't be. So yes, it's recommended by council and mayor to look at things specifically as signage violations, property maintenance of the buildings, things like junk vehicles and garbage. Sometimes that happens. The focus would not be on high grass, but it would be more focused on those that you can see. Probably notice that things have gotten a little bit hairy, so I think this would be a good fit. Look at either one of two ways: either having someone and payment per violation, or more of a $25 per hour, something like that basis. So one of the things, I looked at the budget, and you have a contingency fund in there for $20,000. We're 4 months in, that's a third. We haven't used anything, so we could look at about $2,500 annually. Include the Night Sky with what Wayne Oswald already talked about with $1,200. I mean, that probably covered most of that. So I think this will be something sustainable. I think it's a workable project.
I'd be okay paying them by the violation if they're not the ones picking the violation.
Thank you for saying that.
You know what I'm saying? You say, here's the ones to go, or they bring them to you to approve them. We can't have a guy running willy-nilly sending tickets to everybody just because they have a flag in the yard or something.
Well, but we're not gonna enforce all the codes. We shouldn't have this. Like, we shouldn't be taking who gets fined and who doesn't.
No, it is not about that. It's triage. It's triage. And we ultimately don't want to live in a police state. I mean, we have to have some pretty good, we get gross violations, they need to be addressed. It's my take on it. It's a small town.
We don't need an enforcement code.
And we have a code. I mean, I think it should be enforced, both Night Sky and everything else, but I would be hesitant. Like, contingency fund is not this. Like, I don't feel that's the right use of money for this. Like, to me, that's emergency, that's whatever. So in my opinion, so yes, we should have this, but we should budget for it and do it that way, more appropriately that way. In my mind, I'd say appropriately, not because this is inappropriate, but to me, just as I see contingency fund, this is not contingency fund expense in my mind.
Maybe not the proper allocation.
So
certainly should be budgeted.
Well,
but
you're talking,
let's-
how much would you think it would take for the rest of this budget year? I mean, with the $1,200 coming in, how much are we really talking about until?
I talk about $1,500 maybe.
$1,500. There's some pretty bad violations. We're getting complaints.
So instead of contingency fund, we could just do it in professional services. If the heartburn is the contingency fund, we can just put it in professional services.
So we have the room in the budget.
Yes, we do.
Services.
Yes, we do.
You're thinking you can handle all of our code violations for $1,500?
There's 1,200 coming from Night Sky. Add to that.
Well, and we just said it's going to be sparingly. If we did every single violation, maybe more than 1,500, I guess. We need sparingly.
I would bet that enforcement will bring around more compliance by those even that don't get, I mean, when someone says, I got a ticket for my feather sign, I think you get emails about feather signs.
one of them gets a ticket for it, I think they'll probably also fade away. We'll see. I think, I get a lot of calls, hey, this is going on, this is going on, did you see that? And they're clear violations, we don't have any way of just going there and address it.
Again, I'm not opposed to enforcing our code. I mean, yeah, we have the code, it should be enforced, right? I don't know. I feel like we should plan for it and budget for it and then do it. Right. I mean, I don't. Yeah.
The other thing you could do is, if you wanted us to prepare, for March, for 1 week of March, we could actually do a budget amendment and find the money, but, you know, it's not budgeted now.
Right.
So-
Well, but if it's in the professional, but if it is only $1,500, like, so that's a concern of mine too. Like, we go down there, it's not gonna be $1,500. It's not a concern, right?
If we're doing it triage a la carte, and we say, you know, we got this man.
Well, we stop at 1,500.
We hit the top 20.
But we do have funds that we can allocate from the professional
Yes, sir.
services to that,
Yeah.
without touching it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, if it's budgets within that and part of the budget, then we can cap it. And that's where I don't want it to get out of hand. And then the other thing with the dark skies, I know part of that and what was in the MOA was specifically what they thought would cover enforcing the dark skies code too, right? And so that's where, like, can it do both? Or is it, like, that's where I don't want the expense to start.
I think the person's gonna do both, but we would make sure that whenever of that 1,200, it just does the night sky. We will not commingle those funds.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to take away from the agreement.
Typically, does it get to that point? Typically, they get a notice, and get an option to come into compliance. It's only an extreme case that they do. Am I correct? That's correct, sir.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not opposed if it's budgeted, not contingency. I don't pull from the contingency fund for this.
This is
But
a
if it's
professional
square,
service.
and make sure that we all.
We have the money in the professional service.
And it's- Yeah, we all.
And you're thinking only an additional 1,500 added from our funds. Okay, because I'd be willing to do a conditional approval on this, set a cap on our spending on it.
But if you want to do that, sure. I mean, we'll see how far 1,500 goes. Yes.
But you gotta stop getting calls about feather signs.
Violations.
Yeah, 30 violations, that's just way down the list. No, you can add up 30 violations right now.
If it's
If it's 50 violations,
times 30, that's
I don't know, then you can say the 1,500. If that's 30 violations. Yes, sir.
Got a point of information. Would this code enforcement person not be looking for building code violations as well? Or are you looking simply at junk cars and that kind of thing? I mean,
I think
you guys,
I think it's up
UBC,
beyond the target.
are you UBC?
Yeah, if there's a clear, yeah, I mean, I would say that we can work out a protocol over time for the triage. What does that mean? I think there's enough obvious stuff right now that keep a guy busy for a few days, especially the nice guy stuff.
I mean, I would think you probably want to make sure the buildings were compliant with, what do you use, uniform building code or what? International uniform?
It's an international 2015.
No, I mean, is that not included in your code enforcement?
So,
Well, for that stuff, I mean, as far as the inspections along the way for the building and.
I mean, I could probably show you in my mind within walking distance, a couple of buildings that probably I'm speculating would not be compliant with international building code.
That hadn't been on our radar screen, but it's a good thing to consider, and we'll put that together and that makes.
Well, safety
I'm not
issue.
talking about our historic district.
for the next
But they're
budget.
exempt, okay?
We're trying,
I don't think they are.
we're trying to put out a few little fires, so when we get to the next budget cycle, that's when it'd be a good time to flush that out, let's just see how it works. Stress test it, and then when it comes to the budget cycle next year, roll it in. So we're just looking at something, and I would even say this is for till the end of the budget term to be reconsidered as part of home farm budget for Orange County.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a conditional motion on new business item number 9. I'd like to establish a part-time code enforcement officer. I would like to establish the funding for it to come out of professional services. I'd like to set a cap on it, momentary cap at $1,500 for the rest of the fiscal year. And if we need to discuss this expanded at that point. And I would like to make this role temporary and look at the option of establishing it as a kitchen for the next fiscal year.
Well said. Perfect. I'll second that.
All in favor? All right, really good. Thank you so much. All right. Didn't put an AI policy in the packet because we're not quite ready for that yet, more of a discussion. I'm sitting down in the morning with Lori and some of the staff. They've been putting in public data in a folder. I'm going to ingest it into, I'm just sitting here. I just had it, I uploaded the agenda packet. And everything you talk in the budget, it had this budget before. I mean, it just bang. It's the most amazing thing ever. And so we're going to play around with it. It's just a sandbox at this point. It's just public data. It'll never make decisions for us. Never. And that's part of it. And I would really like to sit down with you to map it out because you can help shape that policy. Because no, seriously, I really do. Because it's a brave new world. And we need people that are watchdogs. I mean, more than ever now, because you start a prompt stream and somewhere along the way, someone says, "Hey, siphon this for me," you don't know, so having that preserved and transparency that is very important, and having it as a deliberative tool, but not decision-making tool is very important. And it can get really abstract we could feasibly by the next council meeting, pretty easily, probably by tomorrow, have a screen up there. And when and the master plan's in there, the budget's in there, all the CMAX stuff, everything. And what it does, it's not a database. It builds a thought. It builds a model, and it's modeling. And then it's able to go anywhere in there and analyze it from any direction, go out and pull stuff in. And, so I said, anything in this packet that should concern me legally. And it went and said, okay, here's this, but it says this and that. I said, which one of these items of the agenda is going to be the most politically controversial that they have? Is that, and they just give me what's my ideas for how to message this. I mean, it's the most amazing, powerful tool ever. And we need to get it shaped so we know how it even fits. But we can have a dashboard up there. When a proposal is made, it will line it up to the master plan, the budget, the infrastructure, everything. It'll give us analysis of what this proposal will do and if it moves us towards our vision. And might have suggestions for adjusting it. It'll give us the budget impact, tell us what ordinance and codes need to be modified, all that stuff instantly. And so, I mean, it's a powerful tool, never been unleashed in a town like this. And so, yeah, we're going to do it in a sandbox. We're going to play with it for a little bit, see how it's shaken out, and then we'll develop a policy that's based on not just speculation at that point. So that's the idea. Anybody have any questions, thoughts? You don't want to sit down and play once we get the stuff ingested. So one thing, for example, and I posted it. It was just a gee whiz. This is cool. It wrote us in UDC. It's a starting point for a conversation. The way it works is you say, hey, this is a little bit too condensed. I think we need to flesh it out a little more and give it a more whatever. You can tell it anything. Make it put a little sense of humor in our UDC. It'll do it. And instantly. It's not a static thing. Here's the answer. Here's the thought where it is right now. Let's keep refining it until we're happy with it. And that's where the committees, of course, it has to fit within the way we do. But To do what I did with the UDC in 5 minutes would have taken years and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And comprehensive master plan, for example. First, Candy, we're investing the old one, so it will start with that. That's gonna be the basis for it. But our meetings with the community become, what's your vision? What's your hope? What's your dream for Blanco? And you enter that in, and then it shapes the master plan based on our hopes and our dreams and our visions. And then it can hold us accountable to that. I mean, it's amazing. So it's gonna change things, and for the better, make it more efficient, more transparent, more effective, less expensive. And I'm excited that we're pioneering this. Anybody have any thoughts?
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I can't wait till you get something drawn up.
So I had, so when the library thing, I said, hey, we're having this issue with the taxing districts, and I said, what do you think of that? And then about that, I said, I have this idea. That's a good idea. It actually wrote the state law legal changes that need to happen. And we can route it to the right committee and everything, just based on that idea to make that happen. It's just really mind-boggling. Grant writing, you just said, here's our community, here's our needs, go find us the money. And it does. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it can go. The government will never be the same, never. I think that's a good thing. It'll be about ambitions and aspirations instead of fighting over words.
So ChatGPT told you to go to the state to change the
No,
creative text district?
No. I had the idea of having a comptroller's representative as a mediator that can go into towns that have some possible disparities to convene the conversation and keep the wheels on the bus and then have the authority to do something about it. That's my idea. It was just the idea I had.
Yours or ChatGPT?
That was my idea. No, it doesn't have ideas. It doesn't do anything. It's like a mech suit for the mind.
I know what it is.
Yeah. So no, I think the idea, I brain bashed a little bit, I sharpened a little bit, and then I said, well, how would this play out? And then that's how, but it's just trying to get your thoughts crystallized. It doesn't it'll fill in the blank if you don't have them. But no, it's not going to go and tell us to do anything. It doesn't have the ability to do that. It's going to help us achieve our goals. That's what that's what it exists for. That's why it's made. You play with it a little bit too, but you get it.
Yeah, I'm not that impressed with it.
It's just, I won't say it. It's a mech suit for the mind, is what it is. It's a prosthetic. It's amazing. So there's my soapbox. Anybody have any? Moving on. Number 11. P and Z.
Mr. Chairperson?
Yeah, I was just looking.
No problem. I assume that you and your committee approved both of the applicants that are listed here.
We had one, so one's for us, one's for historical.
Oh, gotcha, one's for historical.
Yeah, she came to us the other night. She seemed pretty great. We get to be good fit for us. I believe she's here tonight, Calvin.
I am.
Hi.
Hi, hello. Shall I approach?
Come on up.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Council. My name is Tiffany Purdue, and I've applied to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I'm a realtor and home builder. And I was working with Julie Alexander Shacklett. She brought it up and wasn't really something I had considered. And then I thought, well, I'm trying to get involved in my community, kind of within my wheelhouse, and I feel like I could contribute. So, yeah, why not?
Sounds like a great fit for your aptitude.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, I don't know what made you possess to actually step out. I didn't know you get some people up. I'm glad you did. And thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll move. Yeah, I'll move that we approve and appoint Tiffany Purdue to fill the Planning and Zoning Commission vacancy.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, Betty Jones had messaged me earlier and said she thinks she can come in, she regrets that. There's not too many more, people that know the history of Blanco, because that lived the history of Blanco than Miss Betty.
Who's our current chair on this?
Sherry Courier, I thought he resigned.
He did,
Did
he did. The vice chair is Patty Haas. She's gonna open the meeting. The next meeting is the last Monday in February. She's gonna open the meeting, and Addie Frankie has volunteered to chair the committee.
Miss Betty's been the driving force of Founder's Day. Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah.
I'll also move that we appoint Betty Jones to fill the Historic Preservation Commission vacancy.
All in favor? All right, good. Thank you so much. That concludes new business. Moving on to old business, water treatment plant events. Y'all got worked out.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So we talked last month about, a fence that needs to be 6 feet or higher, construct, so what we kind of looked at was first of all, the existing fence now does not meet TCQ standards, so to do that, we met with Chief Thornhill, we talked to, Damon, to try to make sure, so there's really two suggestions I'm gonna make. What we could do is this galvanized chain link. And then, I don't know if it's gonna make everybody happy. The school's done this for a few years, the elementary school. What that is a plastic, kind of lock system that goes in there. The materials are $5,000, and Infomarket said they can install it's pretty easy. It looks pretty good. I thought that was color. I apologize. The one at the school is a kind of a blue, but need to be something that's either kind of a green or a beige color or whatever color you council wants. I don't know if it really matters. But it does look professional. And the one thing that the chief says he likes is that you can actually see through it. The other thing we're looking at is installing cameras on the inside, but we want to make sure it's safe, it's clean, and it's professional. The wood fence idea does not work for what the chief wants to do. So this, I think, would be kind of a good plan that's professional looking, and it's solid. And that's an additional 5, so you're talking about 27,500. Let's see here. This original quote, looked at that, it was 22,561. So it would not exceed $30,000.
And is this gonna have the 3 or 4 rows of barbed wire on the top that TCQ requires?
It would.
Yeah, it's in barbed wire right there. It's in barbed wire.
Yeah.
And who's gonna pick the color?
You guys can pick the color.
Okay, I want to make sure that we have a conversation about the color. Don't go drive by this, maybe it's all orange or something.
No, if you say you want green, if you say you want, it doesn't matter to
There's
me.
little fuzzy things that looks like a head.
Or we can like do a mosaic with this. No, if you can.
It's not expensive.
No, that's a high, that's a high visibility thing, a very nice part of town, a lot of people like that. And it needs to look good.
And it needs to be a good, I mean, this is our public water supply.
Yeah. And it helps, about half the time I drive past it, the gate's wide open, so you know. It would help if we can like close the gate. Yeah.
What I want to know is how many times have we had this on our agenda? Are we gonna be able to fund it?
Yeah, well, the first time it was like 40 grand for an ugly thing, so it hasn't been mission critical.
I think it was our first meeting, last week we were.
Yeah.
It was on the-
Yeah.
Was it the same damn thing?
No.
No,
It's less, we got better for less. A lot better for less. So, yeah.
I'll move that we hire a contractor to replace existing it's not to exceed $30,000. And for the record, I'm fine with that design. I prefer if it's green, maybe a sagey green, not too bright.
Great samples. There's a motion. There's a second. All in favor? Awesome. There we go. All opposed?
I think we put it.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's in bed.
About time.
All righty.
I think I just approved the construction, but that just happened for the record to say I'm okay with that. So I'll revise our motion, but like I just said, that was my opinion.
I'd rather go with something nice and wood, but
Well, no, I'm not. I want to go something nice and metal and brand person. And after all the money we have spent on this system, this is not the time to go cheap.
Chief's happy with it, security one?
She's happy with it.
I know that the old local lore that there was actually a terrorist incident there. Some high school kid drained the tank one time as a prank.
Yeah.
Already. Moving on. Old business number 2. So this was delayed. The nut of the proposal is that Streetscape could be given a promotion and given a direct connection to the council instead of having to go through the historical commission that doesn't have a chair and it's never ever come here and presented us anything about Streetscape. So this is a promotion elevation of raising the importance of Streetscape and making it council and putting a council liaison to sit on it.
Matter if I may on this point, I'd asked to have the second part of the memorandum of understanding of agreement removed at this time. And so, but it's still on the agenda. Item,
Okay.
So, that could be a separate discussion.
Okay, so this, we're just talking about Streetscape organization. Again, this was, unless the council changes it specifically, it's just a matter of approval.
Well, I don't understand the reasoning to take it out of historic. I think it makes sense because the boundaries of the historic district are the boundaries of Streetscape. And I mean, like the pedestrian committee that presented tonight, we're under the transportation committee. And we can still come straight to council. We haven't had an issue.
We'll make a point that the streetscape has never been under historic. It's just follows the historic commission, but there's no agreement between the city and streets. I think that's a misperception.
Some things like, I think it's always on the top of their agenda.
They're required, well, the current structure is, and I think you brought this point up, Councilman Moses, but they're to have a member of the historic commission on as a committee.
Two. They're required to have two, and the chair of the streetscape.
But they're not under the
committee is
direction of the historic committee, other than anybody else in the historic district.
But it's also about the city being, the funds for Streetscape being in the city budget, city committee, it should be in the city control. We should have.
Well, they're not out of our control because they're the historic, are they?
They're in the historic district, but the historic district is not, the historic committee is not the governing body. They answer.
Okay, so they
were created under the city council.
so they're not under the historic district, then that.
Other than all,
Why are we voting?
It's just like custom, there's no.
but all of the final designs from streetscape committee do have to be approved.
Yeah, just like anybody in the square.
Yeah, just like Red Bud would have.
Yes,
Yeah.
have to achieve.
It's a clarification, and again, it's an elevation.
It's a city committee, a city council committee. It's not a historic commission committee.
But you're saying that's what it already is, right? So what's the, what's the
It's an ad hoc committee, but by custom and it just, but you never know how things get started and stick. But they feel that they're stuck under historic and they have to deal that way. They're, on paper, they're not, but this makes it clear and clarifies that it is a city ad hoc committee and they can report directly to council. And that we're gonna have this is to give it a little more attention, give it a little more juice, give a little more strength to get it done. If you always do what you've always done,
But why can't we give it more attention?
well, we are. That was sort of the point here, was to have this conversation.
But it's just a structural thing, like.
Yeah.
We can give them attention with them being under.
They're not under historic. That's just the way they operate. It's not a,
So then what are we voting on? If we're, that, you're not gonna-
this is a clarification. This is a clarification.
I would propose, and I think one of the clarifications to have assign a city council person, and to be clear, I've asked not to be considered. Assign a city council person to be literally part of that committee, if not the chair of committee, maybe a member of that committee.
A voting member or non-voting member?
I would think, well, personally, I think a voting member would be fine, but I think that would be up to the committee itself or the council. You know, I've been involved in the community of Blanco and specifically the city of Blanco except for about a 5-year hiatus for 30 years or so. And there's story after story of completely ad hoc committees that are completely separate from the council, that it's difficult to get anywhere. But Wheels and Feet's a good example. The Safe Routes to School, that went on for years, and kudos to Wayne, who's gotten the night sky done without direct involvement of someone, city council representing the cities as being part of the committee. So congratulations to you. But I think, in my opinion, for important priorities of the city, and I think beautification of the downtown square is extremely important. But it gets more traction and continuity is on the council as a driving member of that force. It takes that on as their. I'll repeat what I said at the workshop, but nominate Candy to be chairman of the committee. And I know people, there are those that disagree that a council person should be chairman. I think it drives the committee more successful.
Yeah, that's the point, to drive it more successfully.
So do we want to change the liaison?
I think we're creating a conflict of interest problem here, guys. For one, I think putting a city council member on a committee is anything other than just a simple liaison with a huge conflict, especially as a voting member. One thing is pretty much anything that's going to be voted on with streetscapes is going to have to come to city council. Right? So if you're going to be a voting member of streetscape committee and vote on it, you can't come up here and vote on it in the city.
I didn't specify.
I know, but I want to make sure that that's very clear. Where I stand on that.
I don't just necessarily disagree with that. I will say that I think the committees, ad hoc committees in general, will be more successful than just having a non-contributing council person just attending meetings and listening in. And it's not uncommon in legislation that the voting members, legislators are chairman of legislative committees, and it formalizes it, and there's precedent for decades in this.
I think it should be a non-voting member. You can be chair, but you shouldn't be.
I want to ask,
non-voting member.
I want to ask you, as your chair, was there ever something so controversial that there was a split vote?
Very well could be.
I'm just saying, I mean, it should be just not a legalistic.
When I was on the historical commission, there was.
Okay.
It was a split vote on the streets.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean,
And same with streetscape, there was actually several issues that we ran with split votes on. As the chairman of it, I had to vote on this. So.
how about the, they vote in
They
case of a tie? How about that? Like the mayor?
I still wouldn't, I think that if a city council member is going to be on a committee and vote on anything, and if that is in the future presented in front of the city council, you have to be voting on it as a city council.
I disagree strongly, because that would be the case if there was it's a conflict of interest if it's a business, but we're talking about beautifying the square. There's no conflict of interest. Oh, I won't treat, I like purple flowers, and it's not like a conflict of interest.
We could very easily create a conflict of interest. You're very, very good. I know you say it's about flowers, but let's say, I'm contracted. You know, let's
That's
say
a conflict of interest.
I know, but let's say you placed me on there, I make decisions and I vote for streetscapes to go a certain way. Because maybe I'm gonna be contracted with bids on that, and then I come up here and I can vote on the council and aim it in a certain direction.
That's a criminal offense.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
Well,
that's something.
I think even creating the perception or a small amount of conflict of interest is just.
But you're a contractor, you can vote for that way here,
I
right now.
don't disagree with that, but I will say.
I think anytime you try to put a city council member on as a voting member of any committee, you're creating.
Well, I disagree with that. I'm willing to agree to disagree with that. I don't disagree with what you're saying, certainly about the streetscape committee, but it is curious to me that there's a culture, and there was one of the public comments today, is that we can't trust any of our elected officials, but unelected folks that are volunteers, we'll trust them to go wherever they want. And
Yeah.
whatever they do,
If you're gonna stick
if you're
city council
elected,
members,
then you should not be in
if
charge.
you're gonna stick city council members on committees and allow them to make decisions there, why do we have committees? Why don't we just let the damn city council make all the decisions?
We have 10-hour meetings every week.
Because they have areas of expertise and areas of
We're
passion.
still putting in those hours on other committees.
Like it's chairperson, we're not trying, like, we have someone who's chair, so why don't we just add a liaison, and then the liaison can, he has an helper on all of the. That's sort of how all our committees, well, not all, but
Yeah, I mean, that's why I put led by the council liaison, it's because that means they're gonna be there.
Is there even, Tim, is there even a remote chance we could be putting ourselves in a conflict of interest here?
The person could, yes. But I understood, I thought that you were trying to accomplish two things. Putting aside as you have down the memorandum.
Well, I'm on that point, and right back to you, but all I think is that any committee or a city should allow more than one nonprofit to donate money to the, any second one is off. It's a third one.
Any free money is, without strings.
You never have to take free money with no strings.
But I thought the points, putting that aside for the moment, was to create a liaison to elevate the committee in the attention of council by having a voting or non-voting thing. Say, make non-voting, make them non-voting and officially a liaison. And then aren't you talking about secondly, elevating the committee as no longer ad hoc, but an official committee of council
It's
that's in ordinance?
It's still ad
right?
hoc. No, we still have it, I mean,
Okay.
I didn't propose any bylaws or anything.
No, I understand. I just thought.
I hadn't
Also
considered,
considering
no, I hadn't considered that, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not going against that. It just seems to add more tedium to things. I don't know that it would affect how it operates, but having the bookkeeping done by the city, I think is necessary.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's part of the committee structure and its public purpose and you have a liaison, I'm thinking you're elevating it.
I'm fine with that. That's fine. But the idea of streetscape from the beginning was to be, it has a sunset. There is a completion, and when it's done, there's no more streetscape committee. And I think we need to try to get to that point as fast as possible. So, yeah, I mean.
Always happen later. Yeah. Hopefully it will.
I'd like to make a motion. Okay, try it.
Go for it.
All right. I'd like to make a motion on old business, item number 2. I'd like to motion that we do not approve the restructuring of streetscapes committee and that we leave it as is.
Mayor Pro Tem has stepped out. Give him a minute. Or we can take a vote and I can cast it.
Councilmember Memphis, is your motion? Is it not touching the liaison at all? Or is it follow up?
Streetscape committee already has a liaison from city council.
And who's that?
That would be mine.
Oh, yeah?
Well,
So
okay,
the
why
only,
did you-
yeah,
sorry,
the
on
only reason I haven't been involved. was this man.
Well, we need to update the website because he's listed up.
It's back. So I'll talk about it. Ryan moved, Councilmember Moses, the disallow any change. Second by Councilmember Swenson, so that's the discussion.
Cargill.
Cargill, forgive me.
The current structure does include the liaison.
It does.
For clarification.
The liaison, but that's not the point. The liaison doesn't show up.
Well,
Well, but did you not say that he was listed as the liaison on the?
not even time.
Have you been showing up to the streetscape?
I've never been formally the liaison. I left the committee, you were the last
So,
liaison.
so I said we established.
And I've never been the official liaison, I've been called the liaison, but I've never.
Now you see why I brought this into the public attention, having this conversation. This is why nothing's happened.
There's no difference. Yeah.
So I'll call a vote, no change at all, like it is for another 16 years, whatever. All in favor?
Can I just have
Yes,
one, just
sure.
a clarification, so does this vote mean that Councilmember Moses is the liaison?
It doesn't affect anything at all. We're on that.
No,
This is,
generally, the
we can discuss that
committee
next.
asks for a specific liaison and then the
Okay,
council.
so there
I-
is no.
I say
liaison?
that we leave that open and ask the streetscape who they would like as their liaison. Because maybe they don't want me as their liaison.
Okay, so the understanding is there's not.
But there is one, there should be.
There should
We
be,
will.
there's a place
But
for
there's
one.
no standards for that person. It's a name on a website at that point.
Correct.
And that defeats any purpose of trying to.
Okay.
Make it better. Just trying to make it better. So, but all in favor of not making changes, say aye, or raise your hand. So 3 not, 4 not. All in favor? Against it. There we go. 4-1. Says 2-0. Okay, moving on. That's actually it.
Executive session.
And we'll we take a session. Thank you all for inviting me.
Executive session.